Chapter 521 Stand with our backs to the river _5. You don't need to worry about this. I have my own plans. Chun Sansi ordered. Tell all the brothers to rest well tonight. Tomorrow, at 5 a.m., we continue our march. Agate River. Great village. Snap. Useless trash. Prince Yuanxin had just finished reading the battle report from Fengshuang City and, in anger, smashed the table in front of him. Fengshuang City is an important trading place for my barbarian tribes, just gone like that. That Murong Chao and his men who have 15,000 troops, the same as Chen's, how could they not hold out even for a day? Even just one day. Murong Chao aside, that Duanja actually took his men and ran away. What? Not a bit of backbone? Haha, with Chun Sansi's bravery. It's normal that a wine sack like Murong Chao couldn't stop him. Yu Wenjing simply smiled, seemingly unsurprised. My dear nephew, don't just lose your temper. Think about it. Where do you think Hongzhe camp is heading next? This? Prince Yu Wenxin, looking at the sand table, said distressedly. How do I feel, after Liangzhou has been sealed off, that Chen, with nowhere to return, is like a headless fly rampaging across the grassland to vent his anger? Not exactly. Yu Wenjing patiently said. Think again. Why would he do something meaningless? Think from the enemy's perspective, what would be the most beneficial for Liangzhou? Could it be? Reminded by his uncle this way, Yu Wenxin suddenly realized, then stared with disbelief. Chan wants to directly attack the great capital. Destroy the main array on Langjiaxu Mountain? Exactly. Yu Wenjing said somberly. That's precisely his plan. Absurd. Prince Yu Wenxin sneered. He's really a desperate dog jumping over a wall, even daring to try such a method. As the saying goes, a cornered beast will do anything desperate. He must have realized it's impossible to breach Yu's state, so he chose to take a risky, life-threatening gamble. Yu Wenjing instructed. Once you understand the enemy's intentions, look again at the route Hongzhe camp is taking. Where will they appear next? Agate River. Right here. Yu Wenxin deduced. The shortest route to Langjiaxu Mountain is across the Agate River, then inevitably encountering us. Well, he's dead for sure. In our great village, we still have 50,000 elite soldiers. He analyzed systematically. The enemy army is merely 15,000, and while the great village has you, a martial saint, they have none. Once the fight starts, it won't be long before reinforcements from all directions come to surround them. Moreover, considering the enemy troops have been marching day and night and are utterly exhausted, while our forces have been staying inside the village, conserving energy. This is what the military books call waiting at leisure. Combined, how could Chin Sansi not lose? Exactly. One gets prone to mistakes once flustered, whether practicing martial arts or conducting a battle. Chun Sansi is no exception. We must not underestimate him. Yu Wenjing, calm as a still lake. As the saying goes, even when a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength, let alone this Chun Sansi being a tiger. Pass down the order. Let the tribes gather their soldiers and come here ahead of time. Also, send out a large number of scouts near the Agate River to gather intelligence and definitely pinpoint their exact movements. Good. I'll arrange that now, Yu Wenxin said as he was about to leave. Wait. Yu Wenjing called him back. Sheener, this battle is a good opportunity for you to redeem your honor and prove yourself. Understand? Always. Yu Wenxin had been the most favored prince in the Yuan family. Although his fifth brother was capable and had many allies, he just wasn't favored by their father. Until the Battle of Piyang. Yu Wenxin was captured alive by Chun Sansi amidst thousands of troops and then stayed in the Great Shang dynasty for a whole 2 years. His fifth brother gradually began to rise. Prince Yu Wenxin experienced a sense of crisis for the first time in his life. Uncle, rest assured. He touched his sword at his waist. They say failure teaches success. I, Yu Wenxin, am no longer the old Yu Wenxin. I won't disappoint father or you, uncle. Good go. Fengshuang City. The snow fell intermittently, unpredictably large or small. It was still dark outside. Fully fed and rested, the soldiers of Hongzhe camp began preparing, many changing into new horses. For those who resisted, just a bit of training by Chen Sun made them compliant and tame. Outside the city, behind a dirt mound, Chun Sansi planted the Li Quan spear into the snow and exhaled a long breath of murky air. Cultivation technique. National Guardian Dragon Spear. Martial Saint. Progress. 40 out of 100. Still a long way off. Junior brother. Wang Ji came alone. Did you ask to see me alone for a special arrangement? Yes. Chun Sansi asked. Senior brother. How's your recovery? Me. Watch the blade. The moment the shout rang out, bursts of heavy gang qi erupted from Wang Ji's body. His armor buzzed sharply, and the surrounding snow was drawn in, gathering into a tornado around him. His MO blade fiercely chopped down, transforming into a gigantic black tortoise. Gang qi taking form. Black tortoise heavenly gang qi. Boom! Chun Sansi lifted his spear to meet the blade, and a wave of air burst from their center, shattering the ice and snow and trembling the earth. It took a long while before peace was restored. He congratulated. Congratulations, senior brother. on returning to the perfect profound phenomenon realm. Hee hee. Wang Ji chuckled. Thanks to the spiritual grain you gave me, combined with the treasure medicine, the effects were superb, improving daily. Plus, the spiritual wine master made us drink that day. Chapter 522. Fight with our backs to the river _6. Mentioning his master. The smug look on his face gradually faded. Let's not talk about these things anymore, junior brother. What plans do you actually have for me? Whoosh. After Chun Sansi arrived behind the mound, he unfolded a map. Senior brother, I'm allocating 2,000 men to you, to take a separate route. Lower the flags, silence the drums, and cross the river quietly. Then, in this mountain, within Lanling Mountain, await the signal from the Blue Bird, and then directly attack the great encampment of the enemy army. I've written the more detailed plans in advance for you. As he spoke, he took out a brocade bag and handed it to his senior brother. Remember, stealth is the most crucial element. I will create as much noise as possible to draw their attention. The lives of millions from Liangzhou are now in senior brother's hands. Earlier, Chun Sansi was somewhat worried. Wang Ji's cultivation hadn't fully recovered, but now it seemed, the worry was superfluous. I understand. Wang Ji took the brocade bag and felt reassured. It seems that junior brother indeed had plans all along. After fighting so many battles with you, I finally have a real chance to make a difference. Rest assured, I will not let you down. After winning this battle, I'll come back and drink at your and junior sister's wedding feast. I am off. He received the orders and left. Chun Sansi, however, didn't rush to follow the main army's departure, but instead took out an alchemy furnace and materials on the spot, preparing to try and concoct the true martial pill. To increase the chances of winning the final battle at Langjutsu Mountain, he had to break through to the martial saint realm. In the midst of snow and wind, a crimson fire dragon soared into the sky, then was sucked into the bottom of the alchemy furnace by the formation. Chun Sansi had already added ice and snow into the furnace beforehand, which quickly melted into water. Then he added spiritual grain, followed by various precious heavenly materials and earthly treasures. True martial pill, costing 200 spirit stones per pill, with materials alone valued at 100 spirit stones. He had only 5 batches of materials in total. He must be as careful as possible. If he could save some materials, it would be a valuable reserve, whether he sold it for spirit stones in Daisfang City or kept it for other uses in the future. Once the process was nearly complete, he placed both hands on the pill furnace and began to infuse mana into it. The true martial pill had a total of 49 major changes and 64 minor ones, significantly more complex than the nurturing pills. Chun Sansi could manage at ease in the beginning, but he started losing control after about 20 changes, and beyond 30, he couldn't sustain it any longer, leaving the heavenly and earthly treasures to rapidly decay under the power of the abnormal fire. Bang!
A loud explosion.
The pill furnace burst open, sending waves of spiritual energy fluctuating through the air. Chun Sansi quickly formed the thick earth decision to block it. Fortunately, it was only a first-rank elixir, so it wasn't particularly harmful. He looked inside the furnace, only to find a mess of black residue, and immediately felt a stabbing pain in his heart. However, sinking costs in elixir concoction was inevitable. At least with each attempt, he would become more proficient. With the remaining 4 sets of materials, he would definitely be able to concoct a true martial pill. That alone would be enough. After packing up his things, Chun Sansi estimated that 4 or 5 days had passed. He needed to catch up with the main force quickly. Qian Sun. He called for his white swan horse and took out an inferior fasting pill from his bosom. It's cold and freezing. You haven't had it easy either, have some of this. Qian Sun sniffed it, seemingly aware it was of inferior quality, showing some disdain, but in the end, decided to eat it. Instantly, its body maintained warmth even amidst the heavy snow, and its energy surged. Carried its master and quickly caught up with Hongza camp. Sir, you've finally returned. Xiaozong reported. There have been 7 urgent dispatches from Liangzhou, all written personally by the 6th prince. He even had the Divine Eagle bring a gold medal, still hoping we could change direction. If we go back now, we can still catch up with the following battles in Yu State. If we proceed further, it's the annihilation of our entire army. No need to pay it any mind. Chun Sansi thought for a moment. I will inform them of our marching route myself and further explain. If they could understand, that would be best. Especially for those in the court, sometimes the attitude is more important than any action. Hongza camp continued northward. On the way, they continually overran several small tribes, slaying nearly 10,000 enemies, with tens of thousands fleeing. This time, Chun Sansi didn't pursue and simply let them escape. It was still the same reasoning. Every battle must have a clear strategic objective. During Huqiu Mountain, the northern campaign was about annihilating the living forces. Now it had become a race to reach Langjutsu Mountain to destroy the Array Eye and break the blood sacrifice array. General, ahead lies the Agate River. The surface is covered with thin ice, impassable for men and horses. We need to build a pontoon bridge. Do I even need to say it? Chun Sansi ordered. Quickly build the bridge and cross the river as soon as possible. But sir, Xiaozong presented the dispatch. Another letter from Liangzhou. The prince says that our spies planted among the tribes in the northern desert sent word that the barbarians were forewarned of our move. Yuan Jingwen has already mobilized a large army to encircle us, possibly amounting to more than 100,000. Once we cross the river, there will be no way back. In wars, both sides often have spies or covert agents from the other side. Perhaps they can't obtain classified intelligence, but they can usually learn of the movements of the opponent's army. Seeing that the general wasn't swayed, Chu Shixiang reminded him again. Sir, 100,000 troops plus a martial saint. Yuan Jingwen isn't like the incompetent Morong Chao. He's a renowned fierce general from the Yuan clan. Once we cross the river, it'll be too late for regrets. Without a way back, then we shall not retreat. Chan Sansi, knowing that further explanation was useless, simply stopped explaining. Write back to Liangzhou. Tell them that I am determined to cross the river, that I want to fight with our backs to the river. Chapter 523, Killing the Martial Saint. Upon the vast expanse of the Great Desert, the soldiers of Hongza camp began to construct a pontoon bridge across the broad Agate River using materials collected along the way from the barbarian tribes. This quickly constructed bridge was essentially only wide enough for one person to cross at a time. The army's crossing of the river would inevitably be discovered, and by then, a retreat would be practically impossible, as the enemy would simply watch as soldiers crossed the bridge one by one. Therefore, if they could not achieve victory after crossing, they would face certain death. There was no way back, and they, 15,000 men, were tasked with taking down the great village ahead, guarded by the martial saint, resupply on the go, and swiftly head north to leave this place, all while being encircled and pursued by an army of 100,000. Even the most skilled military strategists would deem this mission impossible. The Agate River, the barbarian tribe's great village. Report. Prince. After passing Fengshuang City, the Hongza camp pillaged our 5 tribes as they marched north, their might formidable. They have now reached the Agate River, and by the time they were spotted, they were almost done crossing. Uncle, they indeed came. Prince Yuanxin, a mix of excitement and anxiety in his voice, his palm gripping the sword sweaty, proclaimed, No matter what, I am Chan Sansi's old foe. Back then, he was just an unknown little soldier, and his first enemy was me. Now his fame shakes the world, and still, it is I who stand in his way. I, Yuanxin, am Chan Sansi's old foe. That's the spirit we need. Yuanjing spoke in a stern voice. Send the orders down, all troops on alert. If Hongza camp dares to cross the river, make sure they don't live to return. Liangzhou. Rumble. The blood sacrifice array sped up its operation. The black vortex churned out blood fog that completely obscured the entire sky. And then, the sky fell. Yes, the sky was falling. Everyone could clearly see that the sky was getting lower and lower and that the distance between the blood fog and the ground was rapidly shrinking, as if it could fall at any moment, swallowing the earth entirely. Tot tot tot. Walking on the streets, now and then, birds would fall from the sky as their wings touched the blood fog, then dissolve into a pool of blood before the eyes of the onlookers. Divine punishment. Is this the work of the heavens? Uyavings. Do not panic. There is no divine punishment. It's all chaos caused by the demon folk of the witch god sect. The Bailiang army is outside the city, trying to find a way to rescue everyone. The Bailiang army, trapped within the city unable to leave, naturally took it upon themselves to maintain order. Demons? The demon folk of the witch god sect can even cover the skies? The more this was said, the more panic people felt. I've already said, do not panic. There's an army outside the city that will rescue us. Master, if you all are in the city, which generals are outside the city? Lu Ji, General Lu, and Chan Sansi, General Chun. General Chun is outside? Upon hearing this, the emotions of the people stabilized considerably. There's hope. We still have hope. Mr. Chun will surely save us. Exactly. Strange. An assistant general stopped a civilian and asked, Why aren't you mentioning General Lu? Only General Chun? Is General Lu not brave? Who in the world doesn't know of General Lu's bravery? But what does that have to do with us? Governor Mansion. What are we to do? Sun Buki paced back and forth in the courtyard. Who would have thought? A well-intentioned northern expedition turned out like this. This time, even father is trapped. Sun Buki said, Does everything really depend on Big Brother and Sansi now? But I heard Sansi didn't go to U State but ran off to the northern desert. Could something have happened? Then my sister. Wouldn't she become a widow before she's even married? Young master, if you keep spouting nonsense, I'll have to discipline you on behalf of the master. The steward rolled up his sleeves, as if ready to strike. Though he was called a steward, he was actually one of the earliest brothers to follow Sun Xiangzong. Sun Li sat in the room, looking through the window at the red clouds in the sky, with cheeks and pupils all reflected in a bloody red hue, making it difficult to see her true expression. Second mother. Why have the clouds in the sky turned red? Chun Yunchi hid beside the woman. Everyone outside says, a demon wants to eat us. Don't be afraid, Yunchi. Sun Li clenched the little girl's hand. Your father will surely take us away. Oh, what did you just call me? Second mother. Chun Yunshi said earnestly. Great Wall. How is it? Have all the letters been sent out? Your Highness, they've all been sent. We've also informed them that the Agate River area is now heavily encircled by enemy forces, and it is impossible to go there by any means. I hope Chun Sansi comes to his senses in time. Chao Huan paced nonstop, only sitting down out of exhaustion. Turning back now, there's still time to participate in the battle for you state. But if not, there will be no way back. Almost. Chang Wei fiddled with his abacus, carefully calculating the travel time. General Lu should have almost reached you state by now. If General Chun were to return the same way, he'd only be delayed by about 20 days or so, which shouldn't be a problem. Then, report. A fast horse arrived in front of the tent. Your Highness, bad news. General Chun has replied. Not only did they not turn back, but they also sped up crossing the river, saying they want to fight with their backs to the water and chop off Yu Wenjingwen's head to bring back for your Highness with the divine eagle. What? Did I not already tell him that the barbarian army is gathering at the Agate River? A battle with their backs to the water? Is that not absurd? Already displeased by the disobedience, Chao Huan, having urged them in vain, felt anger welling up in his heart as he pointed to the Agate River on the map. This river is wide, once crossed. There is no way back. I only wanted to save him, can he not see that? Chapter 524. Killing the Martial Saint _2. No matter how you look at it, Chun Sansi is still one of the valuable assets of the great Qing dynasty. Chao Huan just couldn't bear to let him die. Sometimes he got angry, but more often it was a worry about loss. A fight to the death. Zhao Wuji muttered. Based on past situations, Mr. Chan on the battlefield likes to build up momentum. I can understand his thoughts, but this time it's different. Backed against the Agate River, it's like a cornered beast, theoretically providing a temporary boost to morale. However, the presence of the Martial Saint on the other side means that any unfavorable situation in the battle could turn the effect of the Agate River from a morale booster into the final straw that breaks the soldiers. They know there's nowhere to run and could completely collapse, and direct defection is also possible. To be put in a desperate situation and to find a way to survive. This saying sounds easy, but the difficulty can only be understood by generals who have truly led troops into battle. It's as hard as reaching the heavens. Because when a group of people is facing doom, rather than bursting out with unprecedented fighting will, it is more likely they'll wet themselves in fright. The battle at Hulao is the perfect proof of this. As the saying goes, good words can't persuade a ghost fated to die. An old general said, since we really can't stop him, just let him go. Yes. Chao Huan put down the letter and exclaimed with a sigh. I just hope that General Lu won't let us down. Yu State. After a long journey, Lu Ji finally led his troops to Yu State. Gazing into the distance, a huge breach could be seen in the thousands of miles of the Great Wall, looking as though a dragon python was savagely bitten in half by another ferocious beast. At this gap, there were thousands of barbarian soldiers left behind. Boss! Nye Yuan caught up and said, I've got the details. Ahead, there are 5,000 barbarian troops. Another 50,000 are in Li City Prefecture, and 100,000 stronger army is camping near Zhutua Pass. Passing through the Great Wall ahead, we enter the territory of Yu State. Shall I send a few dozen light cavalry ahead to test the reality of the Great Wall's garrison? No need. Lu Ji held the heavenly halberd in his hand and gazed at the Great Wall ahead with penetrating eyes, and said in a deep voice, send the order, call for 1,000 men from the Shenzhen army from the White Tiger camp to follow me and directly charge into the enemy lines. All right. Nye Yuan immediately went to arrange it. The two brothers had been partnering for a long time, always using such tactics. At the sight of the enemy army, Lu Ji himself, with a few troops, would plunge into the formation. If any advantage could be gained, the larger force would swoop in afterwards, directly collapsing the enemy army. If they fell into an ambush, at most, they would lose around 1,000 men. Lu Ji himself would be able to break free, while Nye Yuan was responsible for the main army's rear. Of course, in most cases, Lu Ji would lead 1,000 cavalry into the enemy army and scare them to the point of breaking, and then it would be a sweeping victory until a grand win was secured. This was Lu Ji's domineering way of marching troops, using invincible valor and bloody slaughter to terrify the enemy army, keeping them on the verge of collapse. Today was no exception. Boom, boom, boom. Hiss. The fire horse neighed, its hoofbeats thunderous, mane fiery red, and breath steaming like smoke. Astride the horse, a fierce general clad in vermilion armor, a heavenly halberd trailing on the ground, tearing the earth, leaving trenches. One man, one horse, like a mountain god descending, charging straight into the enemy's lines. Shang people. Enemy raid. It's Lu Ji. The barbarian general guarding the breach in the Great Wall immediately identified the person. Quick, notify the prince and the immortal master. Lu Ji is here. The rest of you, follow me and arrange the formation to block him. Stop him. Stop him. Boom. In front of the camp, neither the iron tribulus nor the horse refusing stakes could last a moment in front of the fire horse and the heavenly halberd, as fragile as paper. Ah! Just as the enemy broke into the camp, the barbarian general shouted furiously, picked up a horse-cutting saber and charged forward. Boom! However, in just one strike, the barbarian general turned into a pile of mush along with his horse. With the general dead, the garrison troops instantly scattered. Lu Ji entered a complete frenzy. Wherever he passed was as if no one was there, and 1,000 men from the Shenzhen army slaughtered 5,000 barbarian soldiers until they scattered in disarray. Half an hour later, the Xuanwu camp and White Tiger camp had entered the territory of Yu State, meeting with Su Wenkai and others in a small city. General Lu, we've been anxiously waiting for you. Fan Hailing was ecstatic, as if he had seen a life-saving straw. Yes, General. Pei Tiannan also came forward to greet him. With the reinforcements that have arrived in the past few days from various places, plus the Xuanwu camp and White Tiger camp, we now have nearly 80,000 troops, and with 3 martial saints we can definitely engage them in battle. It's just a pity that Hengze camp hasn't arrived. Fan Hailing said. Otherwise, we would have nearly 100,000 troops, not much different from the barbarian forces, and our chances of victory would be much higher. It's just a pity. General Lu, Su Wenkai, holding a feather fan, approached and asked, how are the forces at the Agate River? I've just received the news too. Lu Ji pointed to the map with a blood-stained finger. Yuan Jingguan has gathered nearly 100,000 troops from nearby tribes, intending to intercept and cut off our retreat. Once we cross the Agate River, it's a dead end. His tactic in leading troops was indeed domineering, but it was not without judgment. Instead, it was based on assessing the odds of victory and what the cost of failure would be. Then he would go for a do-or-die fight, intimidating the enemy army with brutality. If he fought the enemy army whenever he saw them, that wouldn't be domineering, that would be mindless. A balance of rough with subtlety, maintaining an unbeatable domineering stance, is true intimidation, able to make the enemy army panic at the mere mention. For this reason, Chapter 525, Killing the Martial Saint _3. In his judgment, heading north into the Great Desert, one would not only face a long journey, but also confront the Martial Saint and even greater numbers of soldiers. The difficulty of both paths was essentially the same, so naturally one would choose the way that saved more time. Indeed, after destroying the main array everyone would be saved, but with the auxiliary array there might not be enough time to save everyone. But in life, one must always make choices. Yuan Jingguan, skilled with the meteor hammer, is a famous general from the Yuan family, known for his bravery and stability, and he is also a martial saint. With so many soldiers at his command, no matter how you calculate it, General Chun won't likely be able to leave the Agate River smoothly. Pei Tiannan asked, I wonder if this situation has been communicated to General Chun, asking him to turn back immediately. He may not catch up to the attack on Li City Prefecture, but he should be able to assist us in the final battle at Zhu Tuo Pass. Your Highness, I have written him several letters in succession. Lu Ji paused, but General Chun still insists on his own idea. This? Fan Hailing clicked his tongue. What a pity indeed. Actually, to them, the loss of 15,000 soldiers wasn't a fatal blow, but it was a pity for such a young and famous general like Chun Sansi to perish during this trial. Let's not talk about this. Su Wenkai interrupted. Let's discuss how to take Li City Prefecture, and then rapidly set off to attack Zhu Tuo Pass instead, as the power of the blood sacrifice array is getting stronger by the minute. Daqing, capital city. Imperial Palace, Imperial Study Room. Incense smoke swirled, tranquil and serene. Behind the bed curtains, the Empress, without dipping her hand in ink, simply swept her reddened rouged finger lightly across the memorial, and the pages turned and annotations were made automatically. Yet even so, she spent a full 4 hours from morning to dusk dealing with the mountain of memorials, and there were still many left untouched. Auntie. A muffled baby's voice rang out. Stop fussing, told you not to fuss. Wah 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 wah. From the cradle, the half-grown baby burst into loud cries. The Empress, losing her patience, pointed her dainty finger. A trace of spirit light circled around and landed on the cradle, causing it to rock gently on its own. Sister, this commoner child is hungry. The Empress noticed no one was by her side. Sister, no one answered. Someone, keep an eye on the Crown Prince. After giving her command, the Empress put down the memorial she had not finished reviewing and walked toward the depths of the palace. As she left, the child started wailing again. Yes, the 2 palace maids stationed outside the hall hurried inside at the call, shaking rattles and making funny faces, trying everything they could to cheer up the baby. Crown Prince, can you please stop crying? The Empress will punish us when she returns. Hey, who do you think the Crown Prince's father is?
Linger murmured softly.
After the Battle of Hu Lao Pass had ended, their Emperor of Daqing went on a long journey, and when he returned, there was an additional child and a woman. The Emperor said, the child was his. The woman was the child's auntie. But no one knew who the Emperor's spouse, or rather the child's father, was. Do you want to lose your tongue? Palace maid Chunner warned. Mind your own business. At the very back of the palace, a door stood ajar. Gu Xinlan, dressed in dignified and luxurious attire, stood in front of the door, her graceful neck exposed as she looked toward a red light in the distance of the heavenly dome. Worry written between her frowned brows, her hands nervously clasped together. Sister. The Empress spoke discontentedly. Didn't we agree that you would learn to handle state affairs with me? Guati, you're just in time, look there. Gu Xinlan grabbed her sister's hand, pointing towards the west. Isn't that Liangzhou? What's going on there? Why has the heavenly capital turned red? Before she left, she also guessed that trouble would arise, but she only thought it might be a war. If a war breaks out similar to the one with Pyong, repeatedly moving to and fro, dragging her along would be a burden. That's why she brought Du He to Daqing. But she never expected the trouble. Sister, don't be afraid. The Empress's voice was cold, yet what she said carried warmth. If the witch god sex fiends do succeed and ancient demon clan cultivators flood into the eastern continent, I will take you away from here and find a way to return to the cultivation world. If the fiends' plot fails, then there's even less to worry about. That's not what I'm talking about. Gu Xinlan explained. Your brother-in-law? He's still in Liangzhou. What about him? Guati. Can't you use your magic to go and bring your brother-in-law here? Sister. Why do you keep pining day and night for that brothel frequenter? The Empress said coldly. Do you know that within half a year of your departure, he has become engaged to Sun Xiangzong's daughter? Isn't that a good thing? Gu Xinlan replied as if it were the natural course of events. Did our father not take concubines? And Sun Dusher is your brother-in-law's master. And the master's word is as good as a father's command. Could he even decline? Leaving him aside. Let's talk about you. The whole court is abuzz with rumors that you have 18 male pets. The Empress couldn't help interrupting. Sister, what's so good about a man surnamed Chun? Why can't you just forget about him? What he can give you, I can too, and what he can't, I can as well. If the witch god sect doesn't succeed this time, Daqing will be the support I leave for you and Chen Due. What can a man surnamed Chen give you? In the end, he's just a subject. The old emperor of Shang dynasty is obtuse and suspicious. Who knows when he might take Chen's life? You won't be able to live a peaceful life with him. Chapter 526. Killing the Martial Saint _4. Can't you also bring your brother-in-law over? He would never be willing. But we still have to save him. Can't save him. Let's see what fate has in store for him. The Empress, dragging her dragon robe, left and disappeared from sight. The Agate River, the shore of the Big Snow River. All the soldiers of the Hongzha camp successfully crossed the pontoon bridge. 50 miles ahead of them was the largest camp of the barbarian tribes within thousands of miles. Although its fortifications were not as strong as those of a real city, they were incomparable to those of ordinary camps. The most critical aspect was that a martial saint was stationed there, with 50,000 troops ready for combat. In all directions there were countless barbarian tribes gathering. 10 days. Within 10 days. If they couldn't find a way to leave this place, they would be facing a siege by 100,000 soldiers, along with 3 martial saints. Sir. Xiaozong brushed off the ice and snow from his body and bowed with his fist. What are our next arrangements? Sir, shouldn't we just go back the way we came? Chu Shixiang put away the report he had just received. Seeing that sending letters to Chun Sansi was useless, Liangzhou simply started sending letters to Chu Shixiang. He said, we can still make it before the battle commences. Whoever speaks of retreat again, off with his head to sacrifice to the battle standard. The voice of Chun Sansi roared above the wind and snow. At Hulaguin, I had only 3,000 men, yet I still smashed 100,000 and captured Fan Shuzhen alive. Today, I have 15,000 men. Could it be that all these newly joined soldiers of the Hongzha camp are cowards, dragging down the combat strength of our army? General, we swear we will not retreat to the death. Swear not to retreat to the death. Behead Yuan Jingwen. The brothers from Pyong, the original 3,000 black armor warriors, all shouted together, and the other Hongzha camp soldiers also followed suit, their voices thunderous. Someone, tear down the pontoon bridge for me. Chen Sansi ordered. Yes. Several assistant generals immediately complied. Before 15,000 soldiers, they dismantled the pontoon bridge completely. Point of no return. Onward with courage. Chu Shixiang dare not mention retreating anymore. He asked, General, since that's the case, let's march as quickly as possible. I've scouted ahead earlier, 10 miles ahead, just outside the great village of the barbarian tribes. The terrain is open, suitable for our cavalry to form up, and in case something goes wrong, we can still detour for some time on the small path to the northwest. No, pass my military orders. Chun Sansi stood at a high point. Set up our military formation right here, on the shore of the Agate River. Right here. Chu Shixiang turned around, looking at the cold river water beneath his feet. If we take one step back, we'll fall right into the river. Then, don't take a single step back. Form up. The great village of the barbarian tribes. Uncle. Prince Yuanxin came hurriedly into the tent. They're here. All of them. Last night, Chun Sansi successfully crossed the river. Yu Wenjingwen asked, is their main force camped 10 miles outside of our great village?
No.
Yu Wenxin replied. After crossing the river, They dismantled the pontoon bridge themselves and didn't move forward at all, just arranged their troops in formation right there. Oh? They took down the pontoon bridge and are now backed by the Agate River. The usually unflappable Yu Wenjingwen finally showed a hint of surprise on his face. He squinted his eyes as he stared at the map of the Agate River. It seems this young man has truly made up his mind to have a decisive battle with me right here. Good nephew, are you certain the entire Hengzi camp is there? Positive, Yu Wenxin said with conviction. We've checked back and forth many times. At the riverside, there are at least 12,000 men, basically the entire army. After all, they were not counting names in a line, so it was impossible to get an accurate count of the enemy troops down to the last man, only a rough estimate. A full-strength camp numbers 15,000 men. At least 12,000 men, plus the losses along the way, are about the sum of their main force. There would be no reinforcements from the Shang people here. One last question. Yu Wenjingwen asked, are Chen Sansi and Chu Shixiang both there? The surname Chen was full of tricks. He also had to guard against a general laying an ambush in advance. Both are there. Prince Yu Wenxin said. Not only are Chen Sansi and Chu Shixiang there, but also King Yan Shaoji, the 12th prince of the old emperor of the Shang dynasty. There's absolutely no mistake. Try again. Yu Wenjingwen wasn't in a hurry. Report. Just then, a soldier came to report. Chen Sansi and Chu Shixiang, leading a few hundred men, have come to challenge us outside the great village. How timely. Swish. Yu Wenjingwen abruptly stood up. Wrapped around his arms was a layer of thick mystic iron chains, which rattled as he moved. At the end of the chains in his right hand was a large hunk of metal. Meteor hammer. The spherical hammer, covered in spikes, was nearly as tall as a man. Boom! Under the tug of the imposingly built Yu Wenjingwen, the meteor hammer began to shift, like an iron mountain in motion. Uncle, Prince Yu Wenxin said, you're moving so quickly to take action yourself. Why not wait a bit longer and send out 2 generals to test Chen Sansi's mettle first? Nephew, let me ask you. Yu Wenjingwen said as he stepped into the snow. Do you know why? Despite having 100,000 soldiers and the aid of Zhong Hu's son, Lingswan ran Jingxian as military advisor during the Battle of Hu Lao, Fan Shuzhen of Nansu still lost? Because, Yu Wenxin thoughtfully replied after some consideration, Chen Sansi is full of tricks? Incorrect. I admit, he is unparalleled in courage. Wrong again, think harder. Could it be because he had, by his side at the time, Qing country's defected General Deng Feng and Mr. Feng Chu Feng Qingyun? Still not right. Yu Wenjingwen patiently explained, Fan Shuzhen's defeat lay in his hesitation. Chapter 527. Killing the Martial Saint _5. People from the Central Plains say that barbarians do not understand military tactics. However, in truth, each of them has been reading military books from a young age. Whenever there is a battle, they also analyze the collected intelligence thoroughly. One could say, Chen Sansi had deeply studied every battle he fought, and Hulaguin was no exception. Initially, if the army of 100,000 from Nansu had not hesitated in Lingzhou but had attacked Hulaguin directly, would there have still been so much trouble afterward? Hesitation leads to defeat. Today was no exception. Since they had figured out the enemy army's movements and personnel distribution, what was there to wait for? Send a general to probe? That's not probing. It's sending them to their death. Yu Wenjingwen knew that in this world, apart from the martial saint, there was probably no one else who could withstand Chen. Before the battle, if his side's general died first, it would only needlessly squander morale. His own intervention was the best choice. No matter how many tricks you, Chen Sansi, have up your sleeve. As long as I can strike you down with one slap, none can be used. In front of the great village. Barbarians! Chu Shixiang, holding his mo blade, shouted at the barbarians on the watchtower. You barbarians are known for your bravery, so why do you shrink inside the city at the sight of us? Are you scared? Audacious Shang people. You're facing death and still dare to be defiant. The barbarian general Ma Gatal could no longer restrain himself and immediately led 300 light cavalry out of the city to battle. He had just left the city gates when he saw a white-robed general next to Chu Shixiang, drawing his bow in the heavy snow. Whoosh! A black jiao long tore through the air, abruptly appearing in the vast expanse of white heaven and earth. Ma Gatal roared, about to use his curved blade to decapitate the jiao long. But as the arrow drew nearer, he felt the immense and fierce gang qi it carried, realizing his own gang qi paled in comparison like a star against the bright moon. Without even touching the arrow, he foresaw his fate as the jiao long rapidly twisted and distorted into a huge looming death before him. Boom! Just as Ma Gatal was about to give up resistance, an iron mountain landed in front of him, blocking the unstoppable arrow and smashing the black jiao long. Prince! He turned around, and saw atop a mighty black horse, a burly figure as grand as a mountain, clad in fur armor, Yu Wenjingwen slowly retracting his meteor giant hammer, with the gates of the great village wide open behind him and neatly arranged barbarian cavalry swarming out. Upon confirming that the ones a mile away were indeed Chen Sansi and Chu Shixiang, he no longer had any hesitations. The first battle would be the decisive battle. Ma Gatal, I'm leaving 2,000 men with you to guard the great village. Yuan Jingwen's resounding voice almost altered the course of the wind and snow, echoing in everyone's ears. The Shang people are now at the end of their tether with no way out. We just need to push forward, and if they retreat half a step, they will fall into the Agate River. In this battle, anyone who decapitates an enemy can later exchange for 5 acres of fertile land and 2 female slaves in the Central Plains. Come with me, and leave not a single Shang person alive. The scarce land of the Great Desert, the differently featured women of the Central Plains. Wealth, status. After winning this battle, everything will be ours. Liang Zhou was about to assimilate, and it was well known that an immortal was preparing to intervene and hand over the eastern continent for them to rule. Now was the time to strive for merit and secure a favorable position. Kill. For a moment, the barbarian cavalry surged forward with murderous intent, their formation neat as they charged, their momentum so vast that on the nearby slopes, the snow visibly fell off as the earth trembled. Let's go. Chun Sansi did not engage further, leading his men back to the Agate River. In front of him were the similarly neat and strictly ordered 13,000 soldiers of the Hongzhe camp. The red battle flags danced wildly in the blizzard. The war drums sounded as if assisted by the Duke of Thunder. Not only did the barbarians know what they could possess after victory, the soldiers of the Hongzhe camp were even more aware of what was to come after defeat. It wasn't just about dying in battle, but that their parents, wives, children, and all their loved ones would be turned into furnace fodder. So, this battle, they could only win, not lose. Their momentum, their murderous intent, and their will to do or die were in no way inferior to that of the barbarians. If anyone could have flown high into the sky to look down upon the battlefield, they would have seen 2 invisible forces swirling above the 2 armies. Hongzhe camp. Charge. At the front, Chun Sansi halted his horse. His long spear sternly pointed at the approaching barbarian cavalry. Kill! 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 Boom! Hongzhe camp soldiers surged past Chun Sansi one after another like dividing river streams, merging again in the front, becoming even more tumultuous. Engaging with the 50,000 barbarian horsemen in close quarters, the immediate clash of the horses produced a massive sound, looking from afar like colliding tidal waves, plunging into an immensely fierce melee. This battle, though Chun Sansi used the surprise army formation from the Heavenly Book, he did not utilize the Xianzhu. Thus, there were no heavenly phenomena to assist, relying solely on his brothers to fight with their blood. In the melee, he looked towards the direction of the great village. At this time, Wang Ji should also be taking action. Inside the great village, Ma Gatal paced back and forth, feeling somewhat envious of his brothers outside. After this battle, many would receive rewards, yet he had to guard the camp here. Chapter 528. Killing the Martial Saint _6. But when he turned his head to think, if the prince hadn't taken action, he likely would have already died under the arrows of the man in the white robe. To have preserved his life was still better than anything else, and he could earn his merits slowly in the future. Report. General, something's wrong. We have enemy forces. From the northwest direction, a group of cavalry suddenly appeared, also bearing the flag of Hongzhe camp. What did you say? Megatala asked. Fighting and killing were already audible from the west side of the great village. The great village was not like a city. It was built of wood, and if there weren't enough people defending it, it could easily be breached. How many men? Around 2,000. Don't panic, Megatala calmly said. Chun Sansi and Chu Shixiang are both outside. At most it's just an assistant general that's come. Mystical Phenomenon General. They were all accounted for. There were a total of 3 above the mystical phenomenon level in Xuanwu Camp and White Tiger Camp, Lu Ji, Yuan and Guandawu, all of whom had already shown their faces in Yu State and couldn't possibly be here. This Chun fellow was merely a cornered dog jumping over the wall. He wanted to play the game of raiding the camp. Megatala immediately dispatched troops to fight the intruders who had broken into the great village. In the chaos, he quickly locked onto the enemy's general. Mystical phenomenon. It was a mystical phenomenon. In the midst of the crowd, a man was holding a mo blade, each slash carrying a rolling gang chi, blood splattering, flesh flying everywhere, and 2 assistant generals who attempted to stop him were immediately beheaded, their corpses mutilated.
Impossible.
Megatala exclaimed in shock. Who are you? I just don't like letting people die with understanding. In the blink of an eye, Wang Ji arrived in front of Megatala. His Xuanwu heavenly gang chi was powerful and heavy. After only 7 or 8 exchanges, Megatala could no longer defend himself. Though there were no wounds on his body's surface, his organs were already bleeding out, the damage going from inside to out, spreading through his meridians, and he began to show endless flaws. With one thrust, Wang Ji pierced through Megatala's heart. When Megatala desperately grabbed the blade to prevent it from being drawn out, Wang Ji lifted his foot and kicked, seemingly with the power of the dragon elephant, sending him flying. After Megatala fell to the ground, his fingers that had previously grasped the blade were scattered on the ground, and the continuous flow of blood from his heart quickly stained the snow red, leaving him barely clinging to his last breath. Clang! The emo blade was raised above his head. Yet the dying Megatala actually sneered. Grinding his teeth, he said, Chan Sansi really is full of tricks, hiding you. Such a mystical phenomenon of great success. But you are still destined to lose. There are no walls here. Even if you take it down, what use is it? As long as the prince is here, it would take less than 2 hours to annihilate you all. Crack. Wang Ji had no patience for his drivel, immediately raising his blade and dropping it, ending his life. Under his leadership, with a mere loss of 100 men, they took down the great village at the fastest speed and then began preparations according to the instructions in the brocade bag. But there was no joy on his face. Instead, he went to the top of the lookout tower, gazing at the distant battlefield, his expression extremely grave. Megatala was right. To thoroughly defeat the enemy army by means of surprise attacks and capturing the village, one must either have not too great a disparity in force or be able to kill the enemy's main general, creating a situation where the dragon lacks a head and falls into chaos. But now they only had 2,000 men. As for the general, Yuan Jingwen was a martial saint. Unless his master could slay this martial saint, all other schemes would be useless. Agate River. On the battlefield, initially, the barbarian cavalry, with their numerical advantage, dominated. But soon, the soldiers of Hongza camp steadied the situation. Mainstay, all soldiers, common crisis. How could we be clothed? All soldiers, united as one, increased their combat effectiveness with their formation fighting power.
War frenzy.
After bathing in blood, they went into a complete frenzy. A frenzy of 15,000 men. They forgot fear, forgot everything, with only the words "kill the enemy" left in their minds. Empowered by each term, the Hongza camp, even when facing an enemy several times their own size, even as comrades fell constantly at their sides, still maintained their formation like cold, unfeeling machines. Yet their blood was hot, and no one retreated. They accomplished it. No matter how many brothers died, nobody took a single step back. Even in death, they would die upon the banks of the Agate River, not a single one allowing their corpse to fall into the water. Such a fierce will to fight was something no one had ever seen before. Even Yuan Jingwen had to admire them from the bottom of his heart. How long had the Hongza camp been at full strength? In such a short time, Chan San had forged them into a death-like unit, fierce as tiger and wolf troops. Boom! Yuan Jingwen's heart was filled with rage. His meteor hammer fell from the sky like a meteor, smashing more than a dozen Hongza camp soldiers into a bloody pulp, and the shockwave threw another 20 or so into the air. Prince! Trouble! Great village! The great village has been seized by the enemy. Amidst the chaos of battle, the area around Yuan Jingwen was deserted. Hearing this, he was not at all flustered. Didn't I leave Magatal to defend the camp? He can't be so useless that he was killed by an assistant general, can he? No, they also have a mystical phenomenon general, stuttered a commander, reporting. It seems to be that Tang Ruishan. So he was hiding a mystical phenomenon realm general. Yuan Jingwen scoffed. Before the battle began, he had already considered all the possibilities, including the possibility that Hongza camp might leave out 1,000 or 2,000 men to attack his camp. But he didn't care. That's right. Even with an additional mystical phenomenon realm general, it didn't matter. So what if the camp was lost? It wasn't needed anyway. Just need to kill off the Hongza camp at the Agate riverbank. A mere 2,000 or 3,000 men, what waves could they possibly make? And that moment wasn't far off. Even if the soldiers of Hongza camp were not afraid to die, it didn't mean they wouldn't die. Not crumbling didn't mean they wouldn't be defeated. Holding out until now, the casualties of Hongza camp were very real. This battle just continued to fight on. Moreover, Yuan Jingwen raised his head, searching the crowd for the white horse in a white robe, who was also fighting among the enemies. He was ready to speed things up. After the battle started, Chun Sansi deliberately avoided him, going after assistant generals and generals. But that would stop here. Killing this man would end everything. The young general in the white robe also shot back a look filled with boundless killing intent. Today's battle was the last stand for Hongza camp. And how could Chun Sansi's last stand be any different? The thoughts of the two commanders coincidentally aligned. Killing the other would end it. Kill Martial Saint. Chapter 529. Agate's great victory, drinking at the frozen river. Buzz! Chun Sansi swept the enemy away with several continuous thrusts of his spear, and after clearing the nearby threats, he picked up his bow and arrow, aiming at the enemy commander, a burly prince from the Yuan clan, known also as a famous general. The bowstring sang. The arrow flew. Gang Chi surged forth, transforming into the form of a vermilion bird. After melting the ice and tearing the curtain, the arrow traveled the distance of 100 steps in an instant, arriving just in front of the black horse. Atop the horseback, Yuan Jingwen stood unshaken. In his left hand, he gathered a sphere of true chi and then crushed it. Threads of true chi merged into the chains wrapped around his fist. He watched the arrow quietly until the vermilion bird was mere inches from his face and the gale chi fluttered his hair and beard backward. Then, with a sudden reach of his left hand, He firmly clasped the vermilion bird and crushed it to dust. He squinted his eyes, looking at the debris in his hand. Ghost vein wood, and with the addition of special mystical iron, these arrows, capable of storing gang chi to kill generals from hundreds of steps away, are well made. I'll take your bow. Muttering to himself, the figure in the white robe shot several more arrows in the blink of an eye.
White tiger gang, Asher dragon gang, black tortoise gang.
Bang bang bang. With his iron fist swinging, they all turned into dust. For symbols, heavenly gang. Yuan Jingwen clicked his tongue in admiration. Even with the transformation and mysterious body which can automatically adapt to the cultivation techniques practiced, it is not certain to develop the highest grade physique. This means that your perception is remarkable too. If one day you break through to the realms above Martial Saint, my heavenly clan might never have a chance to turn the tide. Alas, it's a pity that as of now, you are only at the mysterious phenomenon level. After blocking a few more arrows, he stopped testing his strength and slowly pulled on the chains wrapped around his arm. The meteor giant hammer at the end began to whirl above his head, emitting a buzzing, dulled sound. Under the surge of true chi, a tornado storm originated from his position in the midst of the heavy snow, sucking in enemy soldiers clad in armor. The snow tornado turned black, and when his force reached its peak, he hurled the meteor giant hammer. It was like a deformed black dragon plummeting from the sky. Rumble! In an instant, dozens of Hongzha camp soldiers turned into dust, and the path ahead was cleared of any obstacles. Yuan Jingwen swung the meteor giant hammer once again. This time, his target was the white horse. But the figure in the white robe clearly had no intention of fighting him head-on. Riding the white horse, he turned and fled, vanishing into the blizzard in the blink of an eye. You won't escape. Yuan Jingwen kicked his horse's flank. Underneath him stood another exotic beast warhorse, named Black Gale. Hiss! Accompanied by a neigh. Black Gale's muscular body burst into action. Its hooves kicked the snow, and it became a force to be reckoned with. A black gale chasing the distant white figure doggedly. Uncle 4, Yuan Xian, having just slain a soldier with his sword, saw his uncle in pursuit of the white-robed figure and immediately wanted to follow. Distracted, a blade of light flashed before him, and in a haste, he raised his sword to block. The yen feather blade in Subin's hand came down relentlessly like a snow wolf. Yuan brat, do you still remember your uncle? Get lost. Yuan Xian, who had a photographic memory since childhood and was a favorite of his father, naturally recognized this face. He seemed to be with Chun Sansi back when he was captured in Pyong. Surprisingly, he had nearly completed his meridian passage now. Assistance. Block him for me. Trying several times to leave but finding himself entangled, he called a few assistant generals to his aid. He was finally able to break free, leading a small group of men to join the search. I'm going to help my uncle kill the white robe. In the midst of the great desert, a black and a white figure, one chasing the other. Across the wild desert, they seemed like two whirlwinds in pursuit of one another. Black Gale's burst of speed, even outpacing Deng Feng's green horse, might not catch up with the white swan horse, but it never lagged too far behind, clinging on relentlessly. Huff huff. On horseback, Yuan Jingwen swung the meteor giant hammer once more, bridging 100 steps in an instant, arriving above the white horse. While galloping, Chen Sansi felt as if the sky was suddenly blocked by something. That was an iron mountain, a spiked mountain carrying the force of world-destroying true chi. In a flash, in Chen Sansi's eyes, the world seemed to slow down. Amidst the snow, he executed the breathing skill, inhaling the myriad mystical energy between heaven and earth into his body. Then, with precision, he used all the useful chi, exhaling the useless mixture. His 8 extraordinary meridians, bolstered by chi, generated bursts of gang chi, which nourished the flesh and traveled to the Li Quan spear, eventually taking shape amid the whirling winds. It was a majestic divine beast with a mountain-like armored body and a dragon serpent-like head. Black tortoise. Suppress. Rumble. A black tortoise soared into the sky, colliding with the iron mountain. With a thunderous crash and an overwhelming storm, the black tortoise disintegrated under the massive mountain. Even so, the mountain itself was thrown back before it could touch the ground, reeled back in by the iron chain to its origin, in front of Black Gale, barely withstanding the blow. Chun Sansi's Li Quan spear buzzed continuously, and his Vajra body vibrated intensely. He felt numbness in his arm, and the Qian Sun horse beneath him stumbled, sinking deeper into the snow. This was the difference between mortals and immortals. Only after transcending the martial saint, one truly steps out of the mundane and moves toward higher realms. The name of the first realm in martial arts is Transcend Mortality. What is Transcend Mortality? Chapter 530. Agate's Great Victory, drinking at the frozen river _2. Shedding the flesh of his mortal body. The difference between martial saint and profound image realm seemed only a realm apart, but it was like a chasm separating heaven and earth. Even several senior brothers and sisters had been trapped at the great success of the profound image realm for many years, unable to break through the bottleneck. Qian Sun, let's go. Chun Sansi dismounted from his horse. When facing martial artists of a higher realm, He needed to concentrate fully and could not afford to worry about the safety of his mount. The black wind horse opposite him seemed to primarily excel in speed, but it couldn't withstand its master's true chi and immense strength. Forced to part from its master, it became extremely restless and agitated, as if provoked, and quickly lost control of its emotions, chasing after the white swan horse before disappearing from sight. Not bad. Yuan Jingwen's iron chains rattled as he walked, and his beard, tied into a whip, fluttered in the wind. To think you can catch my meteor hammer in the profound image realm, this prince is really curious to see just how capable you are. You sure talk a lot. Chun Sansi stomped his foot, and the Li Quan long spear in his hand suddenly transformed into an azure dragon. Yuan Jingwen only saw a flash of cold light, and by the time he caught sight of the other's figure, the spear's light had already reached within 7 steps. He swung the meteor giant hammer at the end of the chain once more. This chain was dozens of yards long. The meteor hammer itself weighed 1,000 pounds. It should have been a very cumbersome weapon. But in the hands of this prince of the Yuan clan, it was as nimble as a dagger, catching up to the swiftly advancing long spear in the blink of an eye, followed by a fierce strike. Clang! Sparks scattered in the snowy backdrop from the clash of metal. A figure in a white robe was sent flying, landing awkwardly on the snowy ground. After retreating several steps, the figure stabilized. The shockwave from the collision created a large fog of ice and snow. It obscured the vision of both men. But Yuan Jingwen used his hearing to tell that the figure in the white robe had not moved from its original location. As he wondered why, he sensed strange murderous fluctuations behind the fog. It was a purple light sword. It arrived in an instant. Yuan Jingwen's brow furrowed as the meteor hammer, wrapped in true chi, obediently collided with the purple light sword. He actually felt a power far exceeding what should be possible for the profound image realm and quickly added power to his stance to stabilize himself. Spell. He felt firsthand that after the light sword shattered, it completely dispersed. This was a spell practiced by immortal masters. Could this Chun Sansi also be a cultivator? But he quickly steadied his mind. From the strength of the spell, it was only SOSO. Buzz, 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 buzz. For sword chi attacks followed in quick succession. Well brought. Yuan Jingwen's meteor giant hammer swung out consecutively, smashing each sword chi attack until all 4 were shattered. Then that cold light attacked him again. Another deep bell-like sound rang out. The meteor hammer clashed with the white tiger killing gang. But this time, the meteor hammer was no longer just a display of brute force. It transformed into a dragon python, repelling the white tiger before coiling around it layer by layer, intent on constricting it to death. The Li Quan spear in Chun Sansi's hand let out a mournful cry. Both tip and shaft were entwined by the chain, struggling to break free for a moment, and a dreadful force sought to pull him forward. Thus, he drove his legs hard, planting half his legs straight into the ground, his chi blood surging, his Vajra body layer upon layer activated, nailing him firm to the spot as if he were an iron stake. Seeing that he could not take the long spear, Yuan Jingwen decisively closed the distance. His massive body, like a mountainous figure, leaped into the midair a dozen yards above amidst the heavy snow. His right arm still held the meteor hammer, while his left fist gathered true chi, forming layers of storm. In a blur, he seemed to possess the body of a dragon python and the head of a demon bull, the true chi churning into ramming cow horn, and with a thunderous impact, he aimed for the diminutive white robe on the ground. A mere touch from the bull python would be the moment the white robe turned into minced meat. And at that critical juncture, Yuan Jingwen witnessed firsthand. The snow layer, the earth crumbled. The soil, hardened by ice and snow for over a month as solid as iron, surprisingly peeled off the ground layer by layer. Then in front of the white robe, condensed into an earthen wall, its surface swirling with spirit light, dazzling and bright. The bull python could not but strike against the earthen wall. Boom, boom, boom. In that instant, the blizzard reversed its course. The ground beneath their feet cracked layer by layer. Another spell? Noticing the earthen wall in front of him beginning to crack, Yuan Jingwen continuously added more true chi to his fist, seeking a quick resolution, intending to break the spell forcefully and take the life of the white robe directly. The spell-formed earthen wall repaired itself each time it neared collapse, possessing extreme resilience, but fortunately, it was not indestructible. He mobilized his protective true chi, condensing it all into his left fist, the demon bull python becoming more solid. Its power suddenly increased, and he could faintly hear the bull python's roar. Finally, the thick earth decision crumbled. Without any impediment, the bull python charged forward. At the same time, amid the blizzard of frost and dust, a streak of golden light suddenly flashed. It was a blade emitting a brilliant spirit light. Magic artifact. The demon bull python had to change direction, colliding with the golden flying blade. To destroy the thick earth decision, the bull python had already used most of its true chi, and now, clashing with the magic artifact, it wailed and dissipated like smoke. Even so, Yuan Jingwen did not dodge, bellowing loudly as his chi blood entered a frenzied state. His muscles swelling continuously, his already towering stature instantly grew even taller, bursting his fur coat open to reveal a bronze-skinned and ferocious body. along with python-like chains tied around it. Chapter 531. Agate's Great Victory, Drinking at the Frozen River _3. His true chi gathered once more. His fist tensed around the chain, ready to blast open the golden blade of light. He could sense it. The strength of this golden blade of light was not significantly stronger than the previous sword chi skill. Indeed, it was so. Yuan Jingwen's iron fist, filled with true chi, effortlessly blocked the golden blade of light. Clang! A crisp sound echoed. Metal clashed against metal, sparking brilliant sparks. Just as Yuan Jingwen slightly relaxed his guard against the magic artifact, under the stimulation of the sparks, the surface of the golden blade suddenly surged with a tuft of scarlet flames, strikingly conspicuous in the vast white world, melting large swathes of ice and snow in an instant and blooming with the scorching heat of the blazing sun. This fire! Astonishment showed in his pupils, retreating almost as soon as the scarlet flames ignited. Even so, his fist was set ablaze. The eerie and terrifying flames seemed to devour everything, spreading rapidly across his fist upon contact with the skin, and where it passed, not even pain could be felt. Flesh and bone alike were reduced to ashes, swiftly spreading toward his forearm, then to his upper arm, and eventually his entire body. At most one breath, he would perish under these flames. Crack! In the blink of an eye, Yuan Jingwen pulled and tightened the chain, forcefully severing his entire arm at the elbow joint, just before the scarlet flames continued to devour upward. Plop! The arm fell in the snow, quickly turning to ashes in the flames, even melting the surrounding ice and snow into a puddle of water. Yuan Jingwen's severed arm kept dripping blood, staining the puddle red. Big brother, let me lend you a hand. A figure who had been lying in wait emerged on the nearby slope. It was Chao Ji in his large cloak, his hands performing seals, emanating spirit light and surging with mana. Beneath Yuan Jingwen's feet, the ice and snow, which had just melted, froze again and then transformed into frosty python snakes that coiled around his legs, hindering his movement. Not far away, the figure in white robes somehow broke free from control appeared 200 paces away, holding a lit torch and wielding the iron core big bow, from beneath which veritable vermilion birds were formed in the scarlet flames, assaulting like suns exploding forth. More of that strange fire. Yuan Jingwen's true chi burst forth, breaking free from the frosty spell that restrained him as the meteor giant hammer carelessly came crashing down onto Prince Jin Yi. Crack! In front of Chao Ji too, a barrier was conjured. But compared to the thick earth decision, it was as fragile as paper, instantly collapsing upon contact, and he was sent flying by the impact of the giant hammer, smashing into the snow hundreds of meters away, his fate unknown. Watching the scarlet vermilion bird approaching, Yuan Jingwen intended to dodge, but to his shock, he found that the arrows shot by the man seemed to track his movements, making them impossible to avoid. His ferocity completely erupted as he roared like a bull python, wielding the meteor giant hammer not to retreat but to advance, carrying overwhelming killing intent as he charged towards the distant white robe pulling the bow, knocking down all the arrows along the way. This flame was terribly frightening. Each contact with the meteor giant hammer melted a dent into it. But that was it. In the end, it couldn't ignite the metal as if it were kindling. In the space of a leap and pounce, Yuan Jingwen had entered the range of attack. The meteor hammer transformed into a bull python, winding through the vast snowy wilderness, then suddenly plunging from high above. The last thing he saw was Chun Sansi raising the iron core bow to block, and then his figure was completely engulfed in the snow mist generated by the clash, with only a broken-stringed big bow flying out and landing in the distant snow. When the snow mist cleared, there was the figure in white robes, using the long spear as support, on one knee on the ground, blood spilling from the corners of his mouth, clearly wounded. Such a strange fire. Yuan Jingwen looked at the big bow on the ground, still filled with lingering fear, and spoke in a deep voice. Is this your trump card? This prince thought, how could you, a mere mysterious phenomenon, dare to attack the Agate River? Turns out, it was with the help of this abnormal fire. He remembered. Long ago, the barbarian tribes had lost an immortal treasure in Payang County, and this Chun came from Payang. Could it be that this abnormal fire was the lost immortal treasure? Enough! Even as Yuan Jingwen spoke, his movements never slowed, not giving White Robe a chance to breathe as he dragged the chain to pursue once more, manipulating the iron weight to smash down again. Since your trump card is used up, there's no need to struggle any longer. Just die quietly. Trump card. Atop the vast earth, the figure in white robes slowly stood up, pulling the long spear from the ice and snow, with no emotion in his voice, as if he was stating an ordinary fact. You're mistaken, spells are not my trump card, nor is the abnormal fire. He paused. My trump card has always been myself. Clang. Zhang Yu unsheathed. Radiance of a clear spring. A spear and a sword, a dragon and a tiger. In the midst of the snowstorm, they clashed with the martial saint. Jinyue's sword? Come back to me. Yuan Jingwen seemed hardly affected by the loss of his arm, as he wielded the meteor giant hammer with immense force with every strike, causing the earth to tremble within 100 paces. Chun Sansi met each strike of the meteor hammer with a spear and a sword. Chapter 532. Agate's Great Victory, drinking at the frozen river _4. Every time, he would retreat. Every time, the injuries within his body would slightly worsen. But every time, he held on. This was enough. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of weapon clashes kept coming, as if there were a large forge by the banks of the Agate River. Several hundred steps away, Chaoji struggled to wake from unconsciousness. Blood all over his face from his eyes, ears, mouth and nose. His breastplate had long been tattered, revealing the golden soft armor underneath. Combined with his defensive magic, he barely managed to preserve his life under the martial saint's strike. His decision to follow Hongza camp, rather than Xuanwu camp, was a gamble. Chaoji was betting that Chen Sansi could win. If he could, it would be his military achievement too. After sharing life and death, it could also bring him closer to the white robe. That was why Chaoji risked his life to help out, although it was to no avail. But come to think of it, this cheap big brother of his sure had a lot of things hidden on him, be it spells or bizarre flames. It's just a pity he still wasn't a match. Yuan Jingwen's reputation was well-deserved. He was certainly one of the fiercest warriors of the Yuan clan. You see, even among martial saints there were disparities. This Yuan Jingwen, even among martial saints, must be one of the premier figures. It seemed he was going to lose the bet. But no matter, there's always winning and losing in gambling. Chaoji still had one tunneling talisman left for himself. As long as he kept his life, all was negotiable. After swallowing several elixir pills to treat his injuries, he struggled up from the snow. He planned to leave the place first before doing anything else. Then he heard the sound of hammering iron. Dang dang lang lang. Still fighting. He is still holding up? That's a martial saint, who represents a qualitative change on the path of martial arts. To put it exaggeratedly, it's like the difference between a mortal and an immortal. Cough cough. Using his sword as a walking stick, Chaoji staggered towards the source of the sound, crawled up the hillside, and peered down at the ground. The fight was still going on. One in a white robe, wielding spear and sword, the other bare-chested, swinging a meteor giant hammer. No one knew how long they had fought for. All that could be seen was Chen Sansi at a disadvantage, struggling to hold on steadfastly, and the one-armed Yuan Jingwen, seemingly with an absolute advantage, but yet unable to make further progress. A Xuanxiang warrior was actually enduring until now. Chaoji gave up the idea of running away and chose to watch on. Still not dead. In Yuan Jingwen's arms, his hammer and iron chain had long since turned into a blur. His eyes saw only his opponent, devoid of the world, as he had entered a state of overexertion long ago. But the white robe simply wouldn't die. No matter what killer moves he used, no matter what tactics he employed, it always fell short by a hair. And this tiny bit seemed like an insurmountable gulf, forever out of reach. Martial saints weren't without pain, nor did they ignore their injuries. Earlier, Yuan Jingwen relied on his powerful physique to temporarily ignore the pain of his severed arm. But as time went on, the continuously bleeding stump began to throb with pain, and the side effects of excessive blood loss gradually manifested. Ah! He roared, swinging his hammer even faster. The sound of iron striking grew constant with no interlude, merging into one. Xuanxiang, you are just a Xuanxiang. Can you outlast me? This king wants to see how long you can hold on. Hold on how long? The blood-stained white-robed Chen Sansi showed no sign of exhaustion. You know, everyone who has said that to me is already dead. Bullshit. Boom, boom, boom. Another 10 rounds went by. To Yuan Jingwen's horror, his hammer technique had been thoroughly figured out during the fight. Chen Sansi seemed capable of divining the future, anticipating his next moves and then cleverly defusing them, no longer merely hanging on but moving with ease. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yuan Jingwen's normally steady state of mind could no longer stay calm, because his true qi was running out. Standing before him was but a single man, yet the true qi he expended could suffice to kill thousands of soldiers. This one man was worth thousands of soldiers. Impossible. Even if it means perishing together today, this king absolutely will not let you leave the banks of the Agate River by half a step. Never. If Hongza camp didn't perish at the Agate River, then there would be no more armies to stop them afterward. They would march straight to the barbarian capital, then to Langjiaxu Mountain. There lay the main array of the blood sacrifice array. Thinking thus, Yuan Jingwen, like a frenzied beast, was willing to damage his foundation and risk demotion in his cultivation, forcibly elevating his power once more. Finally, the guy had exhausted his power. He was spent. He could distinctly feel it. The white robe's gang qi was also weakening. That's more like it. Even if a person equaled thousands of soldiers, he would eventually run out of energy. However, just as Yuan Jingwen was becoming increasingly ferocious, wanting to hang on by a thread to smash him, he saw the opponent inexplicably surge with a strange strength within his body, as though he had rested and returned to the fray, even showing faint signs of returning to his peak. Mysterious phenomenon. 5 organs. The cycle of life never ends. The flow never ceases. At this moment, Chen Sansi finally brought out his ultimate resource. Dragon elephant blood roared through his veins, the mysterious phenomenon 5 organs, combined with meridians 10 times more than those of a warrior of the same realm, helped him recover his gang chi at an almost insane rate. On top of that, he had taken a fasting pill before fighting to replenish his chi blood. Chapter 533. Agate's Great Victory, Drinking at the Frozen River _5. In his eyes, there was no such thing as exhaustion. No matter how many enemies, no matter how strong the enemy, as long as they couldn't kill him, what awaited them was only a desperate counterattack. As he witnessed this scene, Yuan Jingwen's last breath was also exhausted. He could only watch unwillingly as the opponent switched from defense to offense. He went from managing to defend, to barely holding on, to a flurry of panic until he was completely out of strength. This battle, had Yuan Jingwen's explosive limits not been hindered by an opponent of the same realm, he alone could have slaughtered about 5,000 soldiers, enough to completely collapse an army. But what he faced was just a Xuanxiang, and he was defeated by this Xuanxiang. In this world, where is there a martial saint who would be defeated by those beneath them? This was a disgrace. It was the dishonor of the Yuan tribe. It was also the disgrace of the martial saints under the heavens. Clang, 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 clang. Boom! A lapse appeared. The meteor hammer was struck away, and the iron chain wrapped around the long spear once again. But this time, it was the long spear that yanked on the iron chain, preventing it from retracting. Roar! The Jinyue sword shimmered with cold light, transforming into a white tiger that pounced forth. Yuan Jingwen instinctively tried to block with his left arm but only felt a numb chill. Where did he even have a left arm? The sword edge pierced through skin and flesh, severing the throat, spine, and continued until it swept completely under his eyelids. All was suddenly quiet. After a brief deathly hush, Yuan Jingwen's head slowly slid off, dropping to the ground, with blood gushing from the severed neck like a fountain, forming a warm, crimson rain that fell upon the white robe. Rumble! The massive body fell to the ground. This slaughter was declared over. Chun Sansi could no longer bear it, and quickly took out a large amount of healing elixir pills and stuffed them into his mouth and swallowed them. This battle, he had used everything at his disposal. The golden blades had been pre-coated with lamp oil, and after being burned, they were completely discarded. The bowstring of the iron core bow also snapped. He too was injured, but fortunately, it was not a fatal wound. He could slowly recover on the road. Could only be said, the gap between a martial saint and a regular martial artist was indeed too vast. Fortunately, he was no ordinary martial artist. Back at the moon-splitting mountain villa, he had a brief encounter with Wen Ji and roughly understood the lethality of a martial saint, which is why he dared to lead the troops head-on into the fray, not rashly. Certainly, Yuan Jingwen was much stronger than Wen Ji. Uncle! The arriving Prince Yuanxin only saw the headless corpse of his uncle and the blood-soaked Chun Sansi. How could this be possible? His uncle, heralded as the strongest warrior of the Yuan tribe. How could he just die like this? And to be killed by a warrior of the Xuanxiang realm. Yuanxin was first shocked, then furious, drawing his sword and charging forward. Halfway through the charge, Chun Sansi, who was sitting on the ground recuperating, suddenly opened his eyes wide. Yuanxin immediately dared not take another step forward. I'm going to fight you. I must avenge my uncle. Come on. Come at me. It's you, huh? After recognizing the person, Chun Sansi spoke calmly. Your Highness, are you still watching the show? As his words fell, the ice and snow beneath Prince Yuanxin transformed into chains, firmly trapping him. Chao Ji, who had not yet fully recovered from the shock, spoke with disbelief. Who would have thought Big Brother's martial arts would be so exceptional? It's unheard of for a Xuanxiang to kill a martial saint. You're not bad yourself, having learned immortal law. Could it be bestowed by the Emperor? Chun Sansi feigned ignorance. This man, no doubt, was deeply involved with the Seeking Immortal Tower. His original intention was not to expose his spells and abnormal fire, but this person had been following him all along, and more likely than not, had some life-saving trump cards in hand. Killing him to silence him wouldn't be that simple. Fortunately, he also knew some dirt on Chao Ji, and revealing it would benefit no one. Both knowing each other's secrets was equivalent to neither knowing. At the moment, there were more important matters to handle. The main battleground. They had to quickly clear out the barbarian army of 50,000. After a brief respite, they had to leave immediately, or else more and more barbarian forces would keep coming. After a bit of recovery, Chun Sansi gathered all the things he needed to collect. Qian Sun also returned on her own. The Black Wind Horse obediently followed behind. Qian Sun had also won. The Agate River, the main battleground. The warriors of the Yuan tribe had the advantage in numbers. But the warriors of the Shang people they faced seemed not to fear death at all. Like emotionless war puppets, no matter how many of their comrades fell, they would immediately fill the gaps, maintaining the formation without chaos. This aura was enough to deter the barbarian warriors. Seeing their growing desire to retreat, the great general of the barbarians, amidst the chaos, loudly scolded to stabilize the morale. Don't panic, they're about to collapse. That white-robed Chun Sansi has already fled. Indeed. Your main general has fled. What are you still fighting for? Lay down your weapons, join our heavenly clan, and you will be second-class citizens. General Chun. The bloody Chu Shixiang's heart gradually turned cold. He had seen with his own eyes Yuan Jingwen chasing after Chun Sansi, and it had already been the time it takes an incense to burn. A martial saint chasing to kill a Xuanxiang. The outcome went without saying. With General Chen's death, the army would surely disperse, and then they would all be on a path to certain death. Just as both sides were in a stalemate, a loud and clear voice rang, shaking the heavens and the earth. Yuan Jingwen is dead. Won't you all surrender now? Yuan Jingwen was dead. Chapter 534. Agate's Great Victory, drinking at the frozen river _6. Nonsense. The barbarian general sneered as he said, Who dares to bluster like this? Watch as I take your life. Under the watchful eyes of all. Upon a hilltop, a white horse arrived, overlooking the battlefield from a high position. The white-robed figure had just raised the long spear in his hand. The head impaled on the spear tip was none other than one of the 4 sage kings. Yuan Jingwen. Prince Yu Wenxin is here. Chao Ji was holding the captured prince. You are already doomed. Why continue this futile struggle? Boom boom. In an instant, it was as if 2 bolts of thunder had struck right into the hearts of the barbarian warriors. Prince. It's really the prince. Chun Sansi, you killed the prince. The white-robed one killed the prince. Martial saint. He has also reached the martial saint level. Because it was too preposterous, the soldiers preferred to believe that Chun Sansi had advanced to martial saint rather than believe he had killed their prince using the profound image realm. Even so, coupled with the fearless warriors from Hongza camp, it was enough to throw them into complete panic. This, Chu Shixiang was just as shocked as the barbarians. He indeed knew. Chun Sansi was merely at great success in the mysterious phenomenon. Yet, he had killed an enemy martial saint. Normal. A few brothers from Pyong said, It's just killing a martial saint. Right? Don't act like you've never seen it. General Chu, Su Bin, wiping the fresh blood off his gun blade with his armored wrist, said, Now, do you still have any doubts about his lordship? Chu Shixiang was in disbelief. Retreat, retreat. Retreat. Don't panic. Retreat to the great village first. The barbarian general commanded. The great village has already been breached. What did you say? When did that happen? Not long after the battle started. The great village was seized by the enemy. It was the prince who told me not to make it known. How is this possible? The army panicked and retreated. When they were still a few miles from the great village, they indeed saw Dashing's banners planted all over the place. At the highest point, there fluttered a large gilded Chun character in the wind. The village gates were wide open. The overwhelming Dashing cavalry poured out, their numbers indistinguishable. At this moment, the barbarian warriors only knew one thing. Their main general was dead. The enemy had a martial saint, and they had nowhere to go, caught in a pincer attack. A total rout. A thorough defeat unfolded along the banks of the Agate River. On the contrary, the soldiers from Hongza camp, seeing their general return to the battlefield with the head of Yu Wenjingwen in tow, saw their morale boosted to an unprecedented peak, and nothing could stop them from achieving a great victory. Next, it was a one-sided slaughter. On the battlefield, once the will to resist was lost, they became worse off than pigs or dogs, no matter how strong or robust. All they could do was to await their execution. From morning, killing lasted until the dusk. On the banks of the Agate River, corpses lay strewn everywhere. Eventually, only half of the enemy army fled in disarray. The rest were all slaughtered without mercy. By the time the battlefield was cleared, the sky had already turned dim. Report, sir. The count is complete. Xia Tsong saluted. In this battle, our army beheaded more than 20,000 of the enemy, with our own casualties around 2,000. 2,000. It sounds like a casualty ratio of only 10 to 1. Without a doubt, it was an overwhelming victory. But Chun Sansi felt no excitement, because he remembered every single name. Even when initially reviewing the military records, he knew how many family members each person had, whether they were a son, a husband, or a father. At night, the battle-worn Hongza camp reached its limit and received supplies at the great village by the Agate River. Inside the camp, there were freshly slaughtered lambs and mare's milk wine brewed on the grassland. Outside the camp, the sky was obscured by heavy snow and the ground was covered with corpses turned into ice sculptures. Qian Sun led the horses, standing by the bank of the Agate River, bowing their heads to drink. Everything was so orderly, but everything was also so quiet. Including the soldiers of Hongza camp, no one showed excitement. The majority wore faces heavy with a trace of numbness. Brothers. Chun Sansi held a bowl of wine, standing by the bank of the Agate River, his voice resonant, stirring the souls. For thousands of years, the barbarians' desire to destroy us has never died. Among you, how many have joined the army because a family member died under the barbarians' iron hooves? And how many of you have fathers who died on the battlefields fighting these barbarians? Now, The barbarians have even allied with the demons from another continent, aiming to turn our Liangzhou into mere fodder in their cauldron. Their intentions must be punished, their crimes eradicated. But all along, relying on the vast, boundless great desert, with its confusing directions, no matter how great the defeat they suffer at the front, they only need to shrink back and they can recuperate, before emerging again soon after to renew their assault. But today, I want to say one thing. If the enemy can advance, so can we. After crossing this agate river, within 30 days, we can reach south of the Yin Mountain. There lies their barbarian capital, their sacred Longju Su Mountain. Also, the great Khan of the 4 barbarian tribes. There lies our final battle. I, Chun Sansi, assure you, after this battle, the barbarians will no longer invade our borders, troubling our people. From then on, south of the Yin Mountain, not one barbarian tribe will remain. Drink this bowl of wine. We head straight for Longju Su Mountain. We will fight the barbarians fiercely, with all our might. Kill! Kill! In the desert night, shouts of killing shook the heavens. 13,000 soldiers drained the fiery liquor from their bowls, then smashed the clay bowls to the ground. Set out. March! Thump, thump, thump. On the night before even more barbarian reinforcements and the martial saint could arrive, the soldiers of Hungza camp crossed the great village of the Agate River, vanishing completely, disappearing into the depths of the great desert. The blue bird flew through the windy snow, racing back toward Liangzhou, its sharp claws clutching a frozen head sculpture, the head of Yu Wenxin. Chapter 535, Evil God Path, Breaking Through Martial Saint. Agate River. The martial saint of the Tuoba clan, Tuoba Diu, halted his horse as he looked out over the densely packed corpses scattered across the icy, snow-covered ground. He couldn't imagine what had transpired here. All he could do was to urgently send a message back to the great capital. Liangzhou. Boom! The blood fog was only a few dozen feet away from people's heads now. Above the heavenly dome, no birds flew anymore. Crows flocked in groups, perching en masse on the rooftops and eaves. The streets, buildings, and everything within sight had turned crimson, as if the air between heaven and earth was filled with the scent of blood. Oppression and suffocation followed, plunging the vast city into an eerie silence. Inside the mansion of Marquis Wu Yi, the 2 maidservants, Sikin Mohua, had been scared senseless much earlier. Master! Zhao Zhao watched as the blood fog drew nearer. What should we do? Are we about to turn into blood? I heard that even Chun Sansi's master is trapped here and can't get out. If his master is trapped, doesn't he still remain? Ning Xiang looked up, her voice faint. This isn't just a calamity for Liangzhou. This is a catastrophe for the whole world. Great Wall. What should we do now? 6th Prince Chao Huan, amid a myriad of concerns, appeared a bit disheveled. He had just ended his decade-long confinement and had finally returned to the court to make a difference when he encountered such a massive catastrophe. If things continued this way, he feared they would soon turn into blood water. How is the situation in Yu State? Not bad. We should be able to take down Li City Prefecture in the next few days. After Li City Prefecture, there's still Zhu Tua Pass. Chao Huan, exhausted, said, Zhu Tua Pass is the hardest to conquer. I'm afraid it might be too late. Indeed. The second brother, Cheng Wei, fiddled with his abacus. Zhu Tua Pass, with its 100,000 defenders and several martial saints and immortal masters, and while the likes of Jiang Yuanbo from the capital city are still en route, relying solely on General Liu and his men will probably be a dim hope. To damage the White Robe and then lose Liangzhou, could it be? Chao Huan spread his arms wide. Is heaven determined to destroy our great Shang? Your Highness. General Fang Qingyun interjected. The battle report from General Chun has not yet been sent back. It's still better not to speculate recklessly. General Fang, with the situation at this point, you don't need to speak for General Chun anymore. He died for his country. Even if he disobeyed orders at first, surely no one will punish him now. Chao Huan sighed. If only my 12th brother, King Yen Chaoji. He had watched him grow up himself. Though they were not born of the same mother, their relationship had always been the best among all the siblings. Had he known this would happen, he should never have allowed Chaoji to venture with Hongza camp. No, to be precise, he should never have let him come to Liangzhou. Report. A letter from Agate River. Oh, Chao Huan was startled. Quick, is it that my 12th brother and General Chun are still alive? Given the current circumstances, even if the whole army was wiped out, if only a few high-ranking officers survived, it would still be a timely loss for the great Shang dynasty, better than total annihilation. No. The guard reading the report, his voice trembling, General Chun, 10 days ago, fought a desperate battle against the current, personally slaying Yuan Jingwen, then led Hungza camp to smash 50,000 enemy troops, and now has taken Agate River and is heading straight for Yi Mountain. What did you say? Chao Huan initially didn't grasp the news. He reminisced about the name Yuan Jingwen in his mind, then suddenly recalled that this wasn't Yuan Jingwen of Agate River, renowned as the first bachelor of the Yuan clan. He is dead. Chun Sansi killed him. He killed Yuan Jingwen. A profound image realm practitioner killed a martial saint. Not only Chao Huan. Upon hearing the news, everyone present was dumbstruck. Could it be a false report? General Zhao Wuji said with a wry smile. You tell me bone training kills refining internal, I believe. You tell me Hua Jin kills meridian passage, I can accept. But profound image killing martial saint, isn't that a bit too absurd? If that's really the case, wouldn't the martial saint be somewhat disgraced? Could it be the barbarians are playing tricks on us? General Zhao, are you truly confused? General Fang Qingyun spoke up. Would Hai Dongqing send us a false report? Your Highness, it's true. The guard said excitedly. Yuan Jingwen's head has also been sent back. It's just that it can't pass through the boundary. It's right outside now. Is it true? It's an 80% match to the portrait. It's definitely genuine. The tent fell into silence again. Map. Quick. Bring the map.
Cao Huang sao tét lao ly.
He pointed at the location of Agate River on the map. So that means they are now at this location, and in about 20 more days they can reach near Yin Mountain. How many troops can the barbarians gather here in 20 days? Considering the original garrison, plus reinforcements. Cheng Wei provided the answer. Approximately 100,000 for martial saints, along with high-ranking officials from the witch god sect, and an unknown number of immortal masters. Hearing this, the recently exhilarated Chao Huan felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped over his head. Ultimately, this was something impossible to achieve. He estimated. Even if Chun Sansi really killed Yuan Jingwen, it was unlikely he could face so many martial saints and supernatural beings afterward. But to have come this far, it was admirable. General Chun, truly a fierce and loyal minister. Chao Huan bowed his head, gazing at the route taken by Hengze camp from Huqiu Mountain northward, as if he could see them moving through the storm, sharing their determination. Even if it ultimately amounted to ants shaking a tree, it was still worthy of respect. Chapter 536. Evil God Path. Breakthrough to Martial Saint _2. General Fang, you're right. He let out a sigh. Regardless of the outcome, with General Chen's Hengze camp present, we still cling to a glimmer of hope. The Luotian mountain range. Defensive boundary. Dang Immortal looked up, watching as the blood mist drew ever closer to the ground. A sense of panic welling inside him. He gritted his teeth and threatened. You're all on the brink of death and yet remain clueless? In no more than 30 days, the blood sacrifice array will come crashing down. And no matter how high your realm is, you will become nothing but nourishment for the revival of the slaughter vein. The blood sacrifice array. If left undisturbed, it should be complete within 20 days. The destruction of one of the array eyes had slowed the process down. By how much, nobody knew. But even so, it was on the brink of completion. Bullshit. When Ji burst out swearing. We still have tens of thousands of troops outside. You're definitely not going to succeed. Foolish. Dang Immortal scoffed. Are you referring to that mortal named Chun Sansi, who's leading a mere 10,000 people to their deaths? Or perhaps to the transcendent warrior with the surname LV who went to you state? It's useless. How slowly does a mortal army move? They'll never make it in time. Sun Xiangzong, I'm giving you one last chance. Why continue to die here for a mere mortal emperor? Wouldn't it be better to take your family and leave with us? We can use blood pills to extend your life by a few years, to live out your years in comfort. Isn't that a good idea? In front of them, the old man was simply sitting cross-legged, recuperating, and paying them no heed. Don't bother wasting your energy. Xiao Yujing cursed. I've already told you, if we die, you'll die with us. Your death is certain, but I might not necessarily. Buzz. Before he could finish speaking, the sound transmission talisman in Dang Immortal's bosom reacted, and as he listened to the words that entered his ears, a flicker of surprise passed through his pupils, which was quickly covered by disdain. That mortal with the surname Chen had actually killed a warrior at the pinnacle of the Transcendence realm all by himself.
Yi Li De.
He turned to the Wushan sect leader beside him. Did you hear that? Your people can't be that worthless, unable to stop even a mid-stage transcendent warrior, right? Rest assured, immortal master, the Wushan sect leader said confidently. By the time he arrives, the army will have already completed the encirclement, with the martial saints from all tribes present, and combined with our Wushan sect's high priest, even if he has extraordinary powers, he won't be able to get half a step closer to Langjuxu Mountain. Let's hope so. Dang Immortal's voice was sinister. If the slaughter vein fails to revive, it's not just my ancient demon clan that will be affected. You people of the heavenly clan will be forever marooned in this barren desert. I understand, the Wushan sect leader guaranteed repeatedly. In the midst of their conversation, several genie guards, adept in Qinggong, hurried over. Your Majesty, good news. Inside the tent, Emperor Longqing sat on a cushion, with the Dragon Abyss sword resonating, as if sensing the blood sacrifice array, humming incessantly. He slowly opened his eyes, did not reach out, but said indifferently, read it. Your Majesty, this. Mr. Ho, out of excitement, read the content with pauses and breaks. He really crossed the Agate River. Emperor Longqing narrowed his eyes. A mysterious phenomenon killing a martial saint is truly unprecedented in the world. He did not comment further but asked, how about GLV? He is attacking Li City Prefecture, and there will definitely be results within 10 days. You state, the walls of Lifu City. Beneath the black clouds, huge stones rained down from the heavens with the help of catapults, and countless barbarian soldiers were mashed into pulp. The solid walls developed one huge gap after another, and fires broke out everywhere within the city. Chaos reigned with bodies and smoke of war everywhere, presenting a hellish scene on earth. The Bailiang army's siege had been ongoing for many days. Luckily, there was new progress every day, preventing them from being truly stuck outside the city. Inside the central army tent, GLV, covered in blood, looked up at the rushing in Fan Hailing and asked, how is the situation? Fan Hailing answered, before Mr. Su withdrew, he quietly left a vulnerability in the North City wall. It's extremely fragile. After a few rounds of bombardment by the catapults, it collapsed almost entirely, and the barbarians have no way to repair it. Good, Mr. Su did well, GLV praised, then picked up the heavenly halberd. General Pei, General Fan, follow me up first. Kill them. The black tide like Bailiang cavalry charged frantically toward the city walls. At the forefront were three main generals. One stood like a mountain with a heavenly halberd in hand, another dragged a broadsword with a smirk, and one, without a horse, carried a mo blade and leapt everyone a dozen meters. General, GLV and the others have charged over. Hold them off for me. Boom. Inside the city, two barbarian martial saints remained, fighting fiercely against them. The surge of true chi was so intense that the shockwaves alone killed hundreds of soldiers. The already crumbling walls. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, they finally collapsed with a thunderous crash. Pei Tianan and Fan Hailing teamed up to suppress one. GLV alone faced off against a Murong clan martial saint wielding twin blades. Each strike of the heavenly halberd was like a dragon or an elephant, with overwhelming power that forced the twin-blade martial saint into constant retreat. Unable to lift his head, and his hands holding the blades were oozing blood, on the verge of losing his grip on the weapons. After 10 exchanges, both sides pulled apart. GLV rushed forward, and suddenly planted the heavenly halberd into the ground. His body leaped into the air like a dragon or an elephant turning over, pulled out the heavenly halberd in midair, and then smashed it down from the sky, several dozens of meters high. Rumble! This time, the Murong martial saint could no longer withstand it, could no longer hold onto the twin blades, and his body flew backward like a kite with a broken string, crushing dozens of soldiers and horse refusing stakes before heavily falling, his blood gushing from his mouth like a spring. Chapter 537, Evil Godpath, Breakthrough to Martial Saint _3. Both were martial saints, but this person couldn't last 10 rounds in front of G. Seeing this scene, the barbarian soldiers, without exception, fell into immense panic. G was about to make a move, to use his overbearing true chi to directly claim the life of Murong martial saint. Right at that moment, a red light suddenly shot from the heavenly dome. G immediately changed direction, the heavenly halberd colliding with the red light. In an instant, the terrifying power transferred through the weapon into his body, causing him to retreat uncontrollably, his legs embedded in the stone pavement, leaving behind 2 ravines over 30 feet long. Looking up again, the red light was astonishingly a flying sword with a striking presence of blood chi. Also, a figure in a black robe, with a face covered in dark blood vessels and blood-red eyes, floated in midair. He simply curled his finger with a relaxed demeanor, and the flying sword returned to his side automatically. Is this the demon summoned by the barbarians from another world? Seeing this, the Bailiang army was somewhat taken aback. Demon, meet your demise. Only G was completely undaunted. He pulled the heavenly halberd from the ground and walked on the walls, reaching a sufficient height before kicking off fiercely, breaking through half of the wall to reach high into the air. With both arms tightly holding the heavenly halberd, under the surge of true chi, it transformed into a ferocious dragon-elephant beast, its momentum overwhelming. Just a mere transcendence realm martial artist. I want to see how capable you are. The floating ancient demon cultivator was calm and collected, while a mere flick of his sword finger sent the blood-colored flying sword crashing into the dragon-elephant beast, causing shockwaves to burst forth as if twisting the very fabric of space. A few breaths later, the blood-colored flying sword pierced through the dragon-elephant beast, and G, like a falling meteor, smashed into the midst of thousands of soldiers, leaving a gigantic crater more than half a person tall in the ground as he knelt on one knee, about to rise. From within the earth, mana fluctuated, and one after another blood-red vine grew out, resembling chains, that in an instant wound around his legs and arms, preventing any movement. And that blood-colored flying sword, unbeknownst when it had been launched again, was already in front of him. Boss!
Ni Yuan exclaimed in shock.
But he was too far away, with 2 generals entangled beside him, unable to rush over in time. Boom! In the blink of an eye, suddenly, a dense purple energy burst forth from G's body. The purple energy fierce like flames, melting the vines that restricted his movements and enveloping his entire body in a burst of fury. From a distance, it seemed like purple flames were burning across the surface of his body. Even on the heavenly halberd, the true chi-formed dragon-elephant beast was no longer formless, but radiated with rich purple energy, slapping the flying sword away with a heavy palm strike, causing it to spin out of control for several rotations before it finally returned to its master's hand. Incense, fire, divine Tao? A look of surprise appeared on the face of the ancient demon cultivator. You also cultivate the incense, fire, divine Tao? Heh, indeed, incense, fire, divine Tao is probably the only magic skill that can be cultivated in this land bereft of spiritual energy. However, it's a pity you're still too weak. Huh. He was just about to exert his full power. Sounds of a sharp weapon slicing through air echoed from behind. The ancient demon cultivator frantically reached for his sword to block. The sneak attackers were none other than Fan Hailing and Pei Tiannan. The colossal strength of two martial saints was imbued in their attack. The ancient demon cultivator couldn't resist, his body losing balance and plummeting towards the ground. In desperation, he formed hand seals and chanted spells, unfurling a pair of wings forged from evil chi behind him to forcibly regain control of his body. But at the same time, the heavenly halberd had already been lying in wait for a long while. 3 martial saints worked in tandem, assaulting the ancient demon's cultivator. You martial artists are utterly detestable. I am done playing with you. The ancient demon cultivator quickly became overwhelmed. He cast a spell, releasing a cloud of poison fog that forced the 3 martial saints to retreat. Then, seizing the injured Murong martial saint, he flew away on his sword, vanishing into the horizon's edge in the blink of an eye, leaving only his words echoing in the air. If that's all you 3 are capable of, then give up on any fantasies about Zhu Tua Pass. Just wait obediently for my clan's cultivators to descend upon the eastern continent, and refine you into supplemental medicines. Those fiends can fly. There's simply no way to deal with them. Fan Hailing cursed under his breath. Pei Tiannan and Ji once again charged into the enemy army. With the death of one military leader and the flight of another, the barbarian forces quickly crumbled, and the Bailiang army successfully recaptured Lifu City. General Ji, Fan Hailing said, in this battle, our army has slain 10,000 enemy soldiers and captured another 10,000. Another 30,000 realized they couldn't hold out and had already fled last night. They must have gone to Zhu Tua Pass as well. Let's start by cleaning up the battlefield, Ji ordered, pausing before adding, by the way, has there been any news from the Agate River? I hope nothing has happened to my junior brother. General, the report from Agate River arrived just as we commenced battle. General Chun smashed through the Agate River, slaying Yuan Jingwen before heading straight for the Yin Mountain Range. Wait a second. Ji interrupted. What did you say? General Chun killed whom? Yuan Jingwen. Are you sure about the news? Stunned, Fan Hailing exclaimed. If I remember correctly, the Agate River had 50,000 enemy troops, and Yuan Jingwen was a fierce warrior from the Yuan clan. Meanwhile, General Chun is only in the Xuanxiang realm. He killed Yuan Jingwen. What about the details? Pei Tiannan pressed on. I don't know, the subordinate replied, but it's definitely true. SSS. Fan Hailing and the others all sucked in a cold breath of air. In this world, there could actually be someone from the Xuanxiang realm who could kill a martial saint. Does that mean all these years they, as martial saints, had been training in vain? Boss, Nie Yuan said with a sense of amazement. Our little junior brother is just too monstrous. Just over 2 years ago he was still an unremarkable Hua Jin. Now, what do you think? Could he even spar with you now? Chapter 538. Evil God Path, Breakthrough to Martial Saint _4. Hearing this, a solemn look flashed across Lu Ji's eyes. But General Chen's situation is still not optimistic. Fan Hailing pointed at the map. The Agate River disturbance has been so great, the barbarian capital will surely receive the news at the fastest speed and prepare in advance. The real challenge will come after he arrives on the scene. In view of this, Pei Tiannan said, General Chun has also done his best, but in the end, it still falls on us. Now, the vast majority of our forces are concentrated at Zhu Tua Pass, and in terms of numbers, we are not afraid. The main issue is, Nie Yuan sighed. Today, there are at least 4 demons inside Zhu Tua Pass, plus the barbarian's martial saint. We almost have no possibility of breaking through the defenses. Watching the blood sacrifice array become more complete day by day, what shall we do? Mr. Su. Pei Tiannan turned his gaze to the seasoned scholar. Do you have any ingenious plans for the upcoming battles? Zhu Tua Pass is easy to defend but hard to attack, and there is only one path to take. Su Wenkai shook his head gently. I am also at my wit's end. We can't drag this out any longer. No matter how hard the fight, we have to grit our teeth and go through with it. We don't have time to hesitate anymore. Lu Ji quickly made the final decision, pressing his palm firmly on a wide-open plain on the map. Right here, we will make a life-and-death stand against the barbarian forces. Even if the entire army is wiped out, we must take down Zhu Tua Pass and destroy the array. Actually, there is another issue. Su Wenkai stood up, using his feather fan to point in the direction of Liangzhou City. In their field of vision, most of the sky and earth had turned into an expanse of red. Looking from afar, only a slight gap remained for the survival of people. He said, "Even if we win and open the first line of life at the border, I fear we will have only a few days left to retreat. How many people can make it out? In a sense, we have already lost. At least, Her Majesty can leave, my masters can leave, and for the rest, we save whoever we can save." Lu Ji said in a deep voice, "General Fan, General Pei, you and Mr. Su get resupplied and set out tonight. General Nye and I will follow soon." "All right," Fan Hailing agreed. "There are still 10,000 prisoners in the city. What should we do with them? Don't worry about that. Just set off as soon as possible,"
Louis urged.
That night, the Bailiang army swiftly left Li City Prefecture, heading for Zhu Tuo Pass. Inside the city, it was Xuanwu Camp and White Tiger Camp bringing up the rear. "Big brother," Nye Yuan followed by his side. "If there really are 3 to 4 demons ahead of us, with strength not much different from what we encountered today, I fear this battle is more likely to bring misfortune than fortune. Big brother, where are you going?" He watched as Lu Ji left the city. Outside the city, it was the military formation of Xuanwu Camp. In the midst of the formation, barbarian soldiers lay separated as prisoners. "You're right, junior brother." Lu Ji ascended to a high platform, looking down at the military formation before him. "With our current strength, we are not enough to contend with the demons. Therefore, I must enhance my strength as soon as possible." "Big brother, what do you mean by?"
Nye Yuan, puzzled.
"My incense fire divine Tao is close to breaking through." Lu Ji's gaze was deep. "If I can increase my speed just a bit more, I'll be able to play a role in the final battle." Hearing this, Nye Yuan suddenly recalled something. "You want to?" Lu Ji spoke calmly. "Only the extensive sacrifices of evil god path can assist me to break through in a short period of time." "Brother, this doesn't seem proper," Nye Yuan said. "After all, evil god path is a deviant and evil practice. Whether it's deviant and evil or not depends on how it's used." Lu Ji narrowed his eyes. "Besides, these are barbarians. Don't forget that in this war, they wanted to refine us. Also, given the current situation, where can we find the troops to guard prisoners? Solving it right here also saves us one trouble. These barbarians are indeed not worthy of sympathy." Nye Yuan concurred, though still somewhat hesitant. "But what about afterward? I've read the incense fire divine sect cultivation techniques granted to you by Her Majesty after you returned from Ziwei Mountain. In theory, you could return to the true god Tao at any time. But it's said that the evil god path can ensnare the heart, once. Don't worry," Lu Ji affirmed. "Just this once. After I break through, I will return to the true god Tao." "All right," Nye Yuan agreed. "Given the circumstances, it is the only way." Lu Ji took out a sheepskin scroll from his chest and handed it over. "Set up the altar according to the records on this. Aim to complete the sacrifice within 3 days, and then I will retreat for 10 days, which will be enough for me to break through." Daqing, Imperial Palace. "Sister, you've been reviewing petitions for a day and a night. Won't you rest a bit? Have something to eat?" The Daqing Empress looked helplessly at the princess processing documents at the desk. "No need." Gu Xinlan handled the brush adeptly, her actions orderly. "Didn't you ask me to learn these things? Can't I just listen to you? Check it out. Point out any mistakes I've made." "All right, I'll go." The Empress shut her eyes, saying coldly, "I promised you. I go to Langjuxa Mountain to have a look, but I won't interfere with anything else. At most, I'll only save his life." "Great." Gu Xinlan then put down her brush and stood up, grabbing the Empress's hand. "Sister, you can't be like this. No matter how much you cultivate, you can't ignore your kin. He is your brother-in-law. Besides, didn't you also seem quite fond of Du-He?" "Only for your sake, sister," the Empress said expressionlessly. "I shall leave now. You can leave the day-to-day affairs of the court to those old officials for now. Besides, several female death soldiers are hiding in the palace to protect you. If you encounter any trouble, just crush this talisman, and I will rush back." Chapter 539, Evil God Path, Breakthrough to Marshal Saint_5. "All right, I've got it all down." Gu Xinlan led the Empress to the back door of the Great Hall. "You better go now. What's the point of love and affection?" The Empress shook her head slightly and with a wave of her hand changed into a different attire. Then a flying sword appeared, turned into a streak of light and soared away. She looked in the direction of Bailiang, at the red glow that filled the sky. "I'm afraid no one will escape unscathed. I also need to find an opportunity to take sister and the others away from this place of trouble." Langjuxu Mountain. The formation operated day after day. The weather had gotten extremely cold. It had reached the point where one's eyes could freeze shut. In the midst of wind and snow, within the great tent, a fierce blaze burned. For barbarian great khans warmed themselves around the campfire while constantly debating how to divide the territories that lied ahead. After the slaughter vein is revived, the ancient demon Immortal Master will be able to control the entire eastern continent within 2 years. By then, The Shang dynasty will belong to my Tuoba clan. Nonsense. In this campaign, my Yuan tribe has contributed the most. It is only right that it should belong to us, Yuan. You should be content with Dongqing. West Qi is mine, declared the Duan clan. That leaves me with no choice but to barely accept Nansu, said the Morong Great Khan reluctantly. We shouldn't fuss over this. There's plenty of land and wealth in the eastern continent. Once we have controlled the 4 nations, we can continue marching forward. Everything in the world will belong to us. Well said. By my calculations, only a few days are left. The old emperor of the Shang dynasty is also inside. The most crucial one is Sun Xiangzong. That old immortal is trapped within the city. In his lifetime, he has killed who knows how many of our heavenly clan. Now, turning into blood water is his just deserts. And what about his disciple? Did you Wenxin manage to crush that Chun to death at the Agate River? Report. Bad news. Great Khan's bad news. A barbarian burst in with intelligence, recounted the events at the Agate River, and finally added, Now, Chun Sansi is leading his troops straight to Langjutsu Mountain. After a brief dead silence, the Tuoba Great Khan slammed the table and stood up, pointing at the white-haired Yuan Great Khan. Yuan Jinglan, didn't you boast that your 4th brother was the strongest in your Yuan tribe? The strongest man, leading an army of 50,000, died at the hands of the mysterious phenomenon. My 4th brother, my son. Yuan Jinglan was plunged into the shock of the terrible news. It was a long time before he came back to his senses. Gnashing his teeth, he retorted, Tuoba Hongxin, you don't know the full story. What gives you the right to insult my 4th brother? Maybe that Chun has some kind of trump card. If I remember correctly, your younger son was captured alive for the 2nd time, right? And by the same person too, Tuoba Hongxin said sarcastically. It seems to me that your Yuan tribe is not far from its end. Yuan Jinglan stood up, wanting to say something, but he was interrupted. Gentlemen, please stop arguing, urged the Duan clan Great Khan. What is urgent now is to make preparations, not to let him actually reach the mountain. If something goes wrong with the array, many years of our hard work will be ruined all at once. Indeed. Wouldn't it be a joke if the 2 of you start quarreling over such a trivial youngster? Morong Great Khan pointed to the map. That Chun Sansi is currently at most at this location. There are a few tribes in front. Even if they cannot stop him, it should buy us enough time for us to deploy heavy troops at the foot of Langjutsu Mountain. In the end, he is just a mysterious phenomenon. Let's assume he has broken through to the Martial Saint realm. He only has 15,000 men at most, said the Duan clan Great Khan. Add a few martial saints and high priests, and if he dares to come, we'll make sure he stays here forever. That's right. This man is most adept at using schemes and tricks. We should not act rashly. Let's set up our formation here and wait for him. The great desert snowfield. Hongza camp was making a difficult march through the ice and snow. The farther they went, the lower the temperature dropped. Even the soldiers who practiced martial arts every day began to suffer frostbite, and they had to stop frequently to warm up by the fire. This horse, I'll give it to elder brother, said Chun Sansi, as he handed the reins of the black wind horse to the other man. Great, said Wang Ji, who couldn't let go of the horse. He immediately tried riding it and exclaimed, This horse is a treasure. Was it that old scoundrel Yuan Xin's? I bet there aren't many like this on the grassland. He looked down at the horse, recalling how not long before, a martial saint had been sitting on it. This younger brother is really flamboyant. He was on tenterhooks in the great village when not long afterward, he learned of Yuan Xin's death. My lord, Zhao Kong came riding up to report. There is another Yuan tribe camp ahead, but it doesn't have many soldiers, just over 2,000, and the general in charge is not of Martial Saint realm. My lord, what should we do? After the battle of the Agate River, Chu Shixiang had no doubt left in his heart, fully integrating into Hongza camp. There are no martial saints ahead, and the forces are not strong. How about I take the lead and charge straight into it? Stand down. Chun Sansi rejected the proposal, waved his hand to signal the 9th prince nearby to come over. Yuan Xin, the 9th prince, was only at the Hua Jin level, and there was no need for the special confinement method of mystic iron chains piercing through his acupoints. Simply disarming him and having Su Bin and others watch him was sufficient. Moreover, Yuan Xin was very compliant, riding on horseback without ever straying half a step. Chun Sansi, what do you want me to do by calling me over? He swallowed nervously and cautiously said, I'm a prince, you can't kill me. I won't kill you. Chun Sansi tossed him a piece of dried meat. Do you recognize the commander of the camp ahead? Chapter 540, Evil God Path, Breakthrough to Martial Saint _6. Of course I know them. The 9th prince said. The commander's name is Shi Ri Go Li Gu, and he's a subordinate of my 4th uncle. Good. No need to waste time then. Chun Sansi instructed. Go open the gate of the great village, ask them to lay down their arms and surrender. After we've had our fill and rest, we'll leave this place. The enemy forces ahead were not many, but if casualties could be reduced, they should naturally be reduced. Prince Yuan Xin tested. If I call on them to open the gates, will you let me go? You still have to show us the way. Chun Sansi said, in this vast expanse of whiteness, if you're not a local, it's really hard to recognize the way. But rest assured, as long as you do as you're told, I guarantee not to kill you. He brought a few barbarian soldiers with the army, instructed to split up and ask for directions before reconvening, to prevent any tricks. Under the current circumstances, time was the most precious. Soon, Prince Yuanxin was brought before the great village on horseback, under Su Bin's protection. Inside the great village, the lookouts immediately drew their bows. Halt! Don't shoot! It's me.
I'm Yuanxin.
In the midst of the wind and snow, the ninth prince shouted, Go! Call out Shiri Goligu for me. The ninth prince. Shiri Goligu, seeing the prince cloaked in sable fur, found the encounter within expectations. He had received news not long ago of the disastrous defeat at Agate River, and had not expected the arrival so soon. Inside the village, there were only a mere 5,000 men. He knew they couldn't hold out but still gritted his teeth and said, Your Highness, rest assured, I will go out and fight them to the death, and do everything in my power to keep you safe. Open the village gates. In the gale, the ninth prince said, As long as you lay down your arms, you will not be killed. After Hongza camp has eaten and drunk its fill, we will leave. Your Highness? What are you saying? Shiri Goligu doubted he had heard correctly. There are only 5,000 of you, and you can't hold out, so why throw your lives away for nothing? Yuanxin said as a matter of course. Just let them go to the great capital and throw their lives away there. Shiri Goligu was at a loss for words. With their prince saying such things, how could the soldiers within the great village maintain any will to fight? If they insisted on fighting at this time, it would truly be a massacre. Shiri Goligu had no choice but to comply. Hongza camp was thus able to rest and get warm amidst the fires dotting the great village. Chun Sansi continued his cultivation.
Cultivation technique, National Gardien Dragon Spear.
Martial Saint. Progress. 60 out of 100. The previous battle with Martial Saint Yu Wenjing had also been of great help in his cultivation. By normal calculations, it would take him no more than 2 months to break through to Martial Saint. But clearly, there wasn't time now. The next day dawned. Hongza camp continued on its march. Chun Sansi, along with Chen Sun, went to a deserted place. He fired up the furnace. Time for alchemy. To create the true martial pill. With it, he was certain, given 10 chances, at breaking through to the Martial Saint realm before reaching Yin Mountain. Boom! A red fire dragon appeared. The surrounding area for several dozen yards turned as warm as spring, and the ice and snow on the ground melted swiftly. Chun Sansi began adding heavenly materials and earthy treasures in sequence to the mix. When the right moment arrived, he placed his hands on either side of the alchemy furnace, channeled his mana with care to spur the medicinal ingredients inside, and tried his best to use his divine sense to perceive and control the changes within. Bang! The alchemy furnace exploded. Chun Sansi woke with a start. His second attempt at producing the true martial pill had failed. He took a deep breath and reignited the fire. As he was nearly finished, the pill furnace exploded again. Almost there. Chun Sansi opened his storage bag. Inside, there were only 2 portions of true martial pill ingredients remaining. But he should have an extra one this time. Boom! The flaming red fire, talisman light shining. This time, Chun Sansi managed to control the 7x7, 49 major changes, and the 8x8, 64 minor changes smoothly. Even his so-called divine sense seemed to strengthen a bit, allowing him to see the situation inside the pill furnace a bit clearer. Finally, several hours later, the abnormal fire went out, the talisman dulled. Chun Sansi nervously opened the alchemy furnace and looked inside. There, at the bottom of the furnace, lay a dusky green Dan pill, covered in a faint semblance of spirit light flowing over its surface. The true martial pill. Done. Skill. Alchemy. First rank. Progress. 0/500. Utility. Dan quality. Dan quality. Any elixir pill made will not be of inferior quality. As long as it's successfully created, it's top-notch. With this attribute now, Chun Sansi wouldn't have to worry about creating waste in the future. If controlled properly, he could even produce multiple Dan pills in a single furnace, guaranteed not to be inferior quality. His great task was complete. He gently took the elixir pill and slowly placed it in his mouth. Immortal Realm elixir pills required no chewing. Once swallowed, they would turn into a streak of light and travel down the throat to the stomach, from which one could clearly feel a coolness spreading, reaching the limbs in just 2 breaths, especially benefiting the meridians immensely. With the next breath, Chun Sansi felt as if he could sense the change in the 8 extraordinary meridians. The gang chi that was cultivated became incredibly pure, almost as if it were close to a qualitative change. He quickly packed up everything, then took out his long spear and began to practice his spear technique on the spot. After over 3 years of practicing martial arts, he was finally about to break through to the Martial Saint realm.